Chapter 1991. The people of the Qin clan were speechless. They had no way to reply to Qin Wentian's words. Back then when the Qin clan killed Qin Yuanfeng, where were the people of the Qin clan? They watched as the heavenly deities of the Qin clan killed the traitor Qin Yuanfeng. When the Qin clan hunted down Qin Wentian, which one of them would speak up for Qin Wentian? No one dared to question the decision of the Qin clan's patriarch. Now, Qin Yuanfeng and his son returned domineeringly, wanting revenge. What qualifications did they have to beg for mercy? Had they ever spared Qin Yuanfeng and Qin Wentian? But even so, they had no way to continue watching as the heavenly deities of the Qin clan were killed. They had no way to watch as the Qin clan walked towards destruction. Qin Yuanfeng is ultimately of the same bloodline. Our ancestor established the Qin clan. He didn't wish for it to be destroyed in a single day, especially when it was destroyed in the hands of a descendant with the Qin clan's bloodline. There were still people who spoke, hoping that Qin Yuanfeng would show mercy. They already understood that no one in the Qin clan would be able to stop Qin Yuanfeng. The him who returned was too powerful, so powerful that he could easily flatten the Qin clan. Just him alone was sufficient. Qin Wentian and the other heavenly deities only needed to watch from the side, providing support. The Qin clan wants to kill us? Could it be that they aren't afraid of destroying the Qin clan's bloodline? Qin Wentian coldly spoke. Qin Yuanfeng glanced at the person who spoke. His expression was calm as he spoke. As long as I exist, the bloodline of my ancestor will exist. The Qin clan's bloodline will continue to be passed down. My clan can be considered a clan. My clan can be considered a clan. Qin Wentian's calm voice contained an incomparably strong self-confidence, causing the people of the Qin clan to be stunned. What spirit was this? The experts of the Qin clan were speechless once again. As long as he existed, the bloodline would exist. The Qin clan would exist. Who could refute this? Let alone his clan, he alone could be considered a clan. Right now, he was currently suppressing the heavenly deities of the Qin clan. Even if the heavenly deities of the Qin clan joined forces, they would only be suppressed and killed. He, Qin Wentian, and Qin Kursin. The three of them could easily destroy the Qin clan. Could it be that their bloodline would be weaker than the bloodline of the Qin clan? It was like this was only a matter of time. Generations after generations, Qin Yuanfeng would be able to establish another Qin clan. In that case, so what if he destroyed the current Qin clan? 6 beams of light filled the sky, enveloping the boundless Qin clan. Those terrifying vortexes had the power to destroy everything. All the heavenly deities of the Qin clan who were still alive were all enveloped by them. In fact, there was no one who could escape from the 6 beams of light. Too strong. The experts from the supreme ancient immortal realms who came to the Qin clan felt their hearts trembling. At the same time, they felt a trace of panic, worried that Qin Yuanfeng's next target would be them. How hateful! Could it be that the Western Paradise was going to stand by the side and watch as the Qin clan was destroyed? When the hegemonic powers of the supreme ancient immortal realms attacked the Heaven Vault, the mastermind behind the scenes was none other than the Western Paradise. However, not only did the Western Paradise fail to deal with Qin Wentian, now that Qin Yuanfeng has returned, they didn't come to help either. Could it be that the Western Paradise is intentionally exhausting the strength of the hegemonic powers of the supreme ancient immortal realms? If this was the case, they would all be in dire straits. Qin Wentian would definitely not spare them. Although they understood this point, they didn't have the courage to help the Qin clan defend against Qin Yuanfeng. Qin Yuanfeng was a truly terrifying character. They didn't know if he had the glory of the ancient god kings. But at the very least, with their current cultivation bases, they could only look up to him in admiration. Qin Zheng was beaten so badly that he couldn't even retaliate. Dang, quickly leave. I will cover you. Qin Zheng's wife transmitted her voice to Qin Dangtian. Qin Dangtian's eyes were red as he stared at the battle in the sky. If he left, he would be a complete coward. His father was fighting while he was fleeing. In addition, even if he wanted to leave, would he really be able to? Leaving aside Qin Yuanfeng's strength, Qin Wentian and the other heavenly deities were still surrounding him. Arg! Another scream of misery rang out. A heavenly deity died. Right now, there were only a few heavenly deities left in the Qin clan. If this continued, the Qin clan would soon be completely annihilated. Qin Yuanfeng, you are actually so heartless. A heavenly deity howled. What welcomed him was only 6 beams of light. A terrifying dimensional vortex tore everything apart, sucking him in before he vanished from sight. He would die for sure. Heartless? The Qin clan treated him so badly in the past. Now, they actually said that he was heartless? Despicable, cold-blooded, cruel. Such a Qin clan isn't worthy to continue existing. In the future, the Qin clan will only grow stronger in the hands of my son. There will naturally be a stronger Qin clan in the supreme ancient immortal realms. Qin Yuanfeng's voice was as calm as ever. As the sound of his voice faded, the slaughter continued. More and more heavenly deities died. Finally, other than Qin Zheng's wife and Qin Dangtian who didn't participate in the battle, there was only one person left standing in the air. The Qin clan leader, Qin Zheng. Other than Qin Zheng, all the other heavenly deities of the Qin clan were killed by Qin Yuanfeng. The Qin Yuanfeng who returned didn't hesitate at all. Slaughter, revenge. How did the Qin clan kill him back then? If the hatred between them faded after so many years, what about the Qin clan's pursuit of his son, Qin Wenyan? The Qin clan was unforgivable. Just like what he said, such a cold-blooded and cruel Qin clan wasn't worthy to exist. At this moment, Qin Jing stood before Qin Yuanfeng. He wielded the judgment halberd in his hand and his long hair was disheveled, looking extremely miserable. He didn't have the transcendent bearing of the Qin clan leader at all. He stared at Qin Yuanfeng, his younger clan brother. He didn't beg for mercy because he knew it was useless. Even if Qin Yuanfeng spared everyone, it was impossible for him to spare him. He was very clear about this point in his heart. Back then, he did everything he could to deal with Qin Yuanfeng. Other than because of the treasures Qin Yuanfeng obtained, there was also a hint of jealousy in his heart. Back then, after this younger clan brother of his rose up, he started to display talent that wasn't inferior to him. At that time, he was already selected to be the next clan leader of the Qin clan. How could he allow someone more outstanding than him to appear in the Qin clan? If that happened, his position in the Qin clan would be threatened. Everyone had their own selfish motives. He and his father Qin Ding were naturally no exception. They needed to control the Qin clan and in truth, they had already accomplished it. The Qin clan had always been under their control. As the Qin clan leader, he was incomparably awe-inspiring in the supreme ancient immortal realms, enjoying boundless glory. No matter where he went, he would always be the center of attention. When ordinary people looked at him, it was like they were looking at a god. In the entire supreme ancient immortal realms, he was an extremely outstanding character. Until Qin Wenyan appeared, everything slowly changed. But even in his wildest dreams, he didn't expect that these changes would be so swift, catching him unprepared. First, Qin Wenyan rose up domineeringly, stepping into the deity realm, joining forces with the Qianquan sect, 9 Heavens Mystical Palace, Demon God Mountain, and many other powers. After that, Qin Tiangang returned, traversing through time and space to do battle, exiling his father Qin Ding. Until today, Qin Yuanfeng also returned. Qin Yuanfeng, who became the tomb keeper of the divine mausoleum, returned in an invincible manner, staring down at him, the clan leader of the Qin clan. The so-called authority and status of the clan leader, in front of absolute strength, were so weak. They basically couldn't even withstand a single strike. Is this what you wanted to see? Qin Zheng glanced at the heavenly deities of the Qin clan who had disappeared as he felt some despair. Do you have any last words? Qin Yuanfeng calmly asked. His voice was as calm as ever. This sentence of his was like announcing Qin Zheng's death sentence. The words he was about to say would be his final words, his last words. Qin Zheng stared at Qin Yuanfeng and suddenly laughed. Qin Zheng stared at Qin Yuanfeng as he suddenly laughed. He inclined his head and stared at the sky. I have nothing to say about my defeat today. I've never regretted the things that happened in the past. Back then, I killed you and from then on, No one in the Qin clan would be able to threaten my position. I'm the Qin clan king and now, you have returned for revenge. I'm inferior to you and no matter what you say, it's all right. I only have one request from you. Emo, although she has let you down, you were once in love with her. Can you spare her? Qin Zheng didn't expect that before he died, he would actually beg for mercy for his wife. This caused him to be taken aback. As for his wife, her beautiful eyes flashed. She inclined her head and stared at the disheveled shadow in the air. Her silhouette flashed as she appeared in the air. Her beauty was shocking. She and Qin Zheng had always been a couple that everyone in the world envied. Regardless of her talent or beauty, they were all at the peak of the supreme ancient immortal realms. She also didn't regret it. Back then, following Qin Zheng was her choice and it was undoubtedly the correct choice. Everything that happened later proved that her choice was incomparably correct. It's just that now, Qin Yuanfeng's return caused everything to change. The matters of the world were unpredictable. Who would be able to predict the future? Qin Yuanfeng stared at her. Luo Shenxianxue also stared at her. Seeing that Qin Yuanfeng didn't say anything, she calmly spoke, I can't. Qin Zheng's expression froze as he stared at Luo Shenxianxue. Luo Shenxianxue didn't say a word to explain. She simply stood there calmly, exuding magnificence. That sentence was her attitude. The Qin clan wanted to deal with her husband, Qin Yuanfeng. Did this woman not participate? She understood her very well and knew what sort of person she was. All of this could be forgotten just like that. The Qin clan killed her husband, hunted down her son, crippled her elder brother, causing the Luoshan clan to split apart and almost be annihilated. Did she not have a part in all of this? Could it be that she was going to forget all of this? When Qin Yuanfeng heard his wife's words, he didn't say anything. He only stared at Qin Zheng. Since Luo Shenxianxue has spoken, this was his standpoint. Luo Shenxianxue was his woman. Qin Zheng's wife suddenly laughed. She stared at Qin Zheng. If you die, what's the point of me living alone? We didn't do anything wrong, it's just that this is heaven's will. Fate plays tricks on people. After speaking, she walked to Qin Zheng's side and held his hand. They didn't beg Qin Yuanfeng to spare their son because they knew it was impossible. Since this is the case, I have one last request. Your son Qin Wenyin has unparalleled talent and is known as the strongest genius in the supreme ancient immortal realms. My son Dang Tian has supreme talent and is known as Heaven's Son. In the past, they fought twice and both won and lost. Today, can you let the two of them fight for real? Qin Zheng stared at Qin Yuanfeng as he spoke. Even before death, he still wanted to see that his son Qin Dang Tian wouldn't be any weaker than Qin Yuanfeng's son. He hoped that this fate could end with a single battle. Chapter 1992. Qin Zheng already knew what his fate would be. At the moment when his life was about to end, he still felt reluctance in his heart. Compared to Qin Yuanfeng, he was naturally inferior. This was already proven, but he still wasn't willing to admit defeat. Hence, he made such a request. He hoped that his son would be able to fight against Qin Yuanfeng's son, Qin Wenyin. This was a battle of destiny. This battle was his hope. If Qin Dang Tian was victorious, at the very least, he would feel gratified. Qin Yuanfeng's son was ultimately inferior to his son. He didn't lose so thoroughly. Regardless of Qin Yuanfeng or Qin Wenyin, they naturally understood Qin Zheng's intentions. Qin Wenyin took a step forward and stared at Qin Zheng. Back then, you were already inferior to my father. However, you used despicable methods to borrow the power of the Qin clan to kill my father. Now, time has finally proven everything. You basically aren't worthy to be mentioned in the same breath as my father. Even before your death, you still want to use such a method to console yourself? In that case, I will grant you your wish and tear apart the last bit of consolation in your heart. As the sound of his voice faded, he turned his gaze to Qin Dangteng. His white robes and black hair fluttered in the wind, exuding a supreme magnificence. In the ruins of the Qin clan, countless people inclined their heads and stared at this incomparably handsome young man. His name was Qin Wenyin, a descendant of the Qin clan. Right now, he was known as the #1 genius of the younger generation in the supreme ancient immortal realms, a supreme heavenly deity with the highest talent. Even heaven's son Qin Dangtian was trampled under his feet. However, this descendant of the Qin clan has long stood in opposition to the Qin clan because of his father. Qin Wentian's actions naturally expressed his attitude. Qin Yuanfeng didn't stop him and calmly watched on. He believed that his son wouldn't be weaker than anyone else. In a situation where he didn't exist, Qin Wenyan was able to grow to where he is today. This itself was already a legend, and the legend would continue. His son would definitely surpass him and become in existence at the peak of the supreme ancient immortal realms. When Qin Dangtian saw Qin Wentian's actions, he stepped out and appeared before Qin Wenyan. There was no fear in his eyes, only calmness and coldness. Was this a battle of destiny? In this battle, he would prove everything. If I can kill him, will you interfere? Qin Dangtian stared at Qin Yuanfeng as he asked. Yes. Qin Yuanfeng didn't hesitate at all and directly replied. His tyrannical and cold voice directly crushed Qin Dangtian's trace of hope. He naturally would act. Qin Dangtian was his son. In a situation where he had the absolute advantage and could easily kill Qin Dangtian, it was already benevolent of him to allow Qin Wenyan to fight against Qin Dangtian. If Qin Dangtian was truly strong enough to kill Qin Wenyan, how could he not act? In the face of absolute power, nothing was fair. Back then, how did the Qin clan kill him? How did the Qin clan treat Qin Wenyan? Although I will, you are not qualified to kill him. You are not worthy. Qin Yuanfeng calmly spoke. He would naturally act, but this didn't mean that he needed to act. When Qin Dangtian asked, he directly gave the most tyrannical reply. But this didn't mean that he felt that his son was inferior to Qin Dangtian. I understand. Qin Dangtian's silhouette flashed as he soared up into the air. Let's fight. Qin Wenyan inclined his head and stepped out. He had already heard from his parents that Qin Dangtian had entered the divine mausoleum for cultivation. He also wanted to know how strong Qin Dangtian had become after entering the divine mausoleum. It was like fate's arrangement. Qin Wenyan and Qin Dangtian once again stood on opposite sides. Both of them were so dazzling, unparalleled in the world. The experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms couldn't help but sigh in admiration. The two of them were like Qin Yuanfeng and Qin Jing of the past, or Qin Tiangang and Qin Ding of the earlier era. However, fate caused them to stand on opposite sides. Releasing his astral souls, Qin Dangtian had always felt that his Tao was the ultimate Tao, able to lead him to the absolute strongest. The terrifying absolute beginning Tao brewed a divine art. Boundless light manifested behind him as a sword intent manifested. In an instant, boundless sword intent manifested in the air. In the starry space, astral light cascaded down as the sky transformed into a world of stars. The daytime vanished. This was a world of stars. His absolute beginning Tao seemed to have replaced the constellations in the sky. He is getting stronger and stronger. Everyone spoke. His absolute beginning Tao could directly transform the constellations in the sky, becoming one with the starry space. This was an evolution of the Tao. Qin Dangtian allowed his absolute beginning Tao to move towards the pinnacle of the great Tao. The Qin Dangtian now was definitely much stronger compared to the past him. The divine mausoleum was truly a wondrous place. Similar to the heaven vault, the ruins of god kings in the supreme ancient immortal realms all contained unimaginable power. The entire world of stars transformed into a divine formation of the great Tao with Qin Dangtian at the center. He was like the god king of the starry space, ruling over the constellations. Kill! Qin Dangtian stretched out his finger. In an instant, millions of beams of sword light rained down from the sky. Millions of strands of sword chi shot towards the location where Qin Wenyan was at. This scene was so beautiful that it caused everyone to be stunned. Naturally, it was also so powerful that it caused people to feel despair. This was a grand killing Tao that could exterminate everything. The absolute beginning sword Tao manifested millions of swords, destroying everything. The target of all the swords was Qin Wentian's body. Numerous gazes landed on Qin Wenyan. How could Qin Wenyan block such an attack? But from what they knew, Qin Wenyan's astral soul seemed to be boundless and he could control all sorts of Daos. Even the Western Paradise had no way to trap him. He slaughtered his way into the Western Paradise and 2 Buddha lords died in his hands. There was no need to doubt his strength. Could the current him be weaker than before? A terrifying vortex appeared in Qin Wenyan's surroundings. The space around him seemed to be warping as a powerful Dao art was unleashed. Millions upon millions of sword intents instantly gushed over, wanting to engulf him. However, when the sword light neared him, the space around him would distort. It was as though the sword light was being banished to another dimension, before vanishing from sight. Millions upon millions of sword lights and boundless sword chi revolved around Qin Wenyan. This scene was too resplendent, but not a single sword could truly pierce into his body. All of them were sent into a different spacetime as though they were exiled by him, vanishing without a trace. His Tao of spacetime has also grown stronger. Everyone sighed in their hearts when they saw this scene. Qin Dangtian was growing, but wasn't Qin Wenyan the same as well? He was getting closer to his grandfather. Back then during the battle in the Qin clan, Qin Tiangang traversed through spacetime and returned. He used a heaven-defying spacetime technique to banish Qin Ding, causing Qin Ding to vanish into a chaotic spacetime. Now, Qin Wenyan's Tao of spacetime already had a hint of his grandfather's brilliance. He could banish the millions of strands of sword intent, distorting space and time. The boundless killing energy couldn't enter his body. What sort of ability was this? This made everyone understand that right now, even for those hegemonic characters at the peak of the supreme ancient immortal realms, it would be very tough for them to deal with Qin Wenyan. For example, Qin Zheng might not be his opponent. As expected, you are stronger than before. Only then are you qualified to fight against me. Qin Dangtian coldly spoke. His eyes were filled with intense confidence. Even if the Qin clan encountered a huge change today and his clan might encounter a calamity, he was still as confident as ever when he fought. Because he knew very well what sort of changes had happened to him and how strong he was now. Although he wasn't as strong as Qin Yuanfeng, who was proficient in the 6 paths, Qin Wenyan would definitely not be his opponent. Qin Wenyan inclined his head and stared at Qin Dangtian. He calmly spoke. Someone who was once defeated by me actually dares to say such words. Don't you feel that this is very ridiculous? Ridiculous? Qin Dangtian mocked. He didn't feel that it was ridiculous at all. A terrifying divine might bore down on him. Behind Qin Dangtian, boundless starry space manifested, converging bit by bit as an illusory humanoid figure appeared. This figure was imposing and imposing. Although it was blurry, everyone could feel that it was unexcelled in the world. The experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms inclined their heads. Strange looks could be seen in their eyes when they stared at Qin Dangtian. This was? When they thought of the rumors about the divine mausoleum, the hearts of many people pounded. Could it be that Qin Dangtian had really obtained the inheritance of the divine mausoleum? Descend. Qin Dangtian spoke. That incomparably imposing shadow stood tall in the sky, like the Lord of the heavens and earth. It transformed into a protector god that appeared behind Qin Dangtian. At this moment, Qin Dangtian seemed to have received the protection of a god king, inheriting the divine Tao. He was truly the heaven's son, unexcelled in the world. Qin Yuanfeng frowned when he saw this. As expected, he actually had such a heaven-defying ability. He actually borrowed the body of a future inheritor to appear, wanting to return for a battle. However, since everything has already been destroyed, dust to dust, dust to dust. Although he was once the protector of the divine mausoleum, since the ruins have been destroyed, his mission has also ended. If the ancient godly monarch truly returned, he didn't fear a battle. Naturally, he wasn't in a hurry to act. This wasn't a true return. This was a battle between his son and Qin Dangtian. He still believed that his son, Qin Wenyan, would be able to win for sure. I'm known as the Heaven's Son and should be destined by fate. In reality, everything that has happened is also proof of fate. It's just regretful that there are always some undefeatable existences in the world that can affect fate. However, the ending of this battle has already been determined by fate. You will lose for sure. Qin Dangtian calmly spoke. His confidence originated from his strength and his inheritance. Chapter 1993. The experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms inclined their heads and stared at the starry sky in the sky. Their hearts trembled. As more and more people in the supreme ancient immortal realms mentioned the god's relic, some ancient rumors began to circulate. It was rumored that the ancient gods were buried in the divine mausoleum, and the person who arranged all of this was a supreme existence, the divine king of the flood region, the moon god. In the 9 heavenly star rivers, the moonlight was the brightest in the starry sky. People called it the moon god because it was the highest form of respect. It was rumored that in that era, the moon god was so powerful that he was able to use the power of the stars in the heavens for his own use. He was able to use the most powerful divine techniques in the world, and had the power to destroy the archaic era. It was rumored that he was only a step away from transcending. Could it be that he had sealed himself in God's relic so that he could return one day? Could that be the divine king? Everyone stared at the blurry figure, wondering if he was borrowing the body of an inheritor to descend. If the god king returned, how would Qin Wenyin be able to contend against him? In addition, the body he borrowed was none other than the extremely terrifying heaven's son, Qin Dangtian. This scene caused the experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms to waver. Maybe Qin Dangtian would truly be able to defeat the number 1 genius of the supreme ancient immortal realms. The people of the Qin clan felt their hearts trembling when they saw this scene. Was this the Qin Dangtian who returned from the god's ruins? No wonder the clan leader, Qin Zheng, said that even he wouldn't be able to win against his son Qin Dangtian now. Right now, Heaven's Son has truly obtained the care of a god king and has unfathomable abilities. Sadly, Qin Yuanfeng came and didn't give him enough time to grow. If not, the Qin clan might be able to survive this calamity and become a hegemonic power of the supreme ancient immortal realms, standing shoulder to shoulder with the Western paradise. Just like what Qin Dangtian said, fate had determined that he would be the Heaven's Son. However, there would always be some irresistible factors in the world that would affect his destiny. Qin Dangtian obtained the God King's inheritance and coincidentally, Qin Yuanfeng of the Qin clan was the guardian of the ancient god ruins. Could it be that this wasn't fate? Right now, the only thing they could do was to admire this battle. The Qin clan, these 2 supreme geniuses who had a grudge against each other were destined to fight. Qin Wenyin inclined his head and stared at the sky. The boundless constellations manifested the shadow of a god king. In the air, the most resplendent starlight transformed into a pair of eyes, the eyes of the moon god. It was rumored that in ancient times, the moon god's eye had the power to destroy everything in the world. Right now, how strong would Qin Dangtian be? Qin Wenyin soared up into the starry space. A powerful divine might gushed forth from him as a storm of time and space gathered around him. With a wave of his hand, a space-time sword intent that could lacerate everything pierced through space, directly appearing around Qin Wenyin. The sword intent transformed into a sword Dao that could lacerate space-time as a terrifying beam of sword light flashed in the starry space. Behind Qin Dangtian, in the air above the gigantic shadow world, boundless starry space manifesting an extremely powerful moon that was like a divine formation. Its light enveloped Qin Dangtian's body, and when the space-time sword attack shot over, it actually dissipated, transforming into nothingness as though it had never appeared before. That beam of light seemed to contain the might of Dao annihilation, able to destroy all heavenly Dao energy. It was like a supreme divine might that could dominate everything. Qin Wenyin furrowed his brows and continued to try different Dao arts. However, under the protection of the illusory figure, the moon divine formation could destroy all Dao arts and divine arts. None of them could land on Qin Dangtian. All the heavenly Dao attacks seemed to have lost their ability to attack. Dao annihilation. Everyone sighed in admiration. Was this the ability of a god king? It was too powerful. Qin Dongtian's inheritance could actually borrow his body to unleash such power. This was simply unbelievable. The methods of a god king were unfathomable. Give me some more time. Even your father Qin Yuanfeng wouldn't be my opponent, let alone you. Qin Dongtian's voice was filled with arrogance. Although this might be his final battle, he wouldn't lose his pride. This was a battle that belonged to him. In this battle, he would unleash his most dazzling radiance. He was extremely confident because his inheritance was the inheritance of a god king. Even Qin Yuanfeng was merely a protector of it. Borrowing the power of an ancient god? Where does your pride come from? If it's just you, you wouldn't even have the qualifications to be my opponent. Qin Wentian's voice was calm. He floated in the air and stared at Qin Dangtian. Make your move. Let me see how strong the power of a god king's inheritance is. He has never seen an ancient god king before. Up until now, there might only be a single ancient god king left in this world. That existence was none other than that existence in the Western paradise. That existence would definitely be his greatest enemy, because he wanted to truly sense how powerful an ancient god king was. He wanted to know if his father and the crazy old freak had also reached this level or not. If they hadn't, how great would the disparity be? Ridiculous. Could it be that you didn't borrow the inheritance of others for your current accomplishments? Since it's in my body, it naturally belongs to me. His heart didn't waver at all. He stared at Qin Wenin and spoke, "Moon God's eyes." As the sound of his voice rang out, in the boundless starry space, the resplendent moon god's eyes radiated two beams of light. These two beams of light engulfed everything, instantly enveloping Qin Wenin. At this instant, Qin Wenin only felt that he had come to another world, the world of the moon god's eyes. In here, he seemed to have lost all his strength and was like an ordinary mortal. Before him, an incomparably majestic god like a god king stood there. Just a single glance from this god was enough to make him prostrate on the ground. Kneel. The voice of a god rang out, reverberating through Qin Wentian's mind, causing him to have an impulse to kneel. His will was greatly shaken. Frowning, Qin Wenyan resolutely stared at the figure before him. He was also a heavenly deity. Even if a true god king returned, he wouldn't be qualified to make him kneel. He wouldn't kneel. Blaspheme the god king. A cold voice rang out. As the sound of this voice faded, a supreme divine weapon shot over. It was like the weapon of a god king, capable of annihilating everything, unstoppable. Qin Wenyan unleashed his heavenly Tao to defend. A spatial storm manifested, wanting to expel the divine weapon. However, when the divine weapon pierced through, his Tao was directly destroyed. He was so weak that he couldn't even withstand a single strike. The divine weapon pierced through his body, causing intense pain. Qin Wenyan lowered his head and stared at his chest. The divine weapon pierced through his body as fresh blood flowed out. What ability is this? Qin Wenyan silently mused. Under the envelopment of the moon god's eyes, he was like an ordinary mortal, unable to withstand a single strike. His body was easily pierced through. If this was the case, how could he fight against Qin Wenyan? His attacks couldn't even shake his opponent. His defense was also useless. How could he fight against Qin Wenyan? Illusion. Qin Wenyan spoke. He inclined his head and stared at the starry space. This must be the power of the illusionary heavenly Tao. The moon god's eyes brought him into the illusion world with a single glance, affecting him. In this illusion world, his strength was greatly weakened. The power of the heavenly Tao couldn't even withstand a single strike. He was like an ordinary mortal facing a heavenly deity. He had no way to resist and could only die. His will was strong. He wanted to struggle free from the illusion. However, he discovered that this heaven-defying illusion was no different from reality. There were no flaws at all. For a true heaven-defying illusion Tao, the illusion was reality, the truth was also the illusion. Reality and illusions were a single entity. Borrowing the power of the starry space to form a supreme illusion art, how powerful was the moon god's eyes? Most probably only the people of that era would know of this. How can you fight against me? At this moment, a voice drifted over. Qin Wendian stared ahead. Under the moonlight, a supreme figure appeared. It was none other than Qin Wendian. The Qin Wendian now was like a true god king. Did the god king borrow his power to fight against him, or did he transform into a god king? Kill! A cold voice rang out. Another supreme divine weapon penetrated through everything. Qin Wendian's expression was like ice as he spoke. Time freeze. In the surroundings, time and space seemed to be about to stop. However, when the supreme divine weapon penetrated through, the time freeze Tao directly shattered. That divine weapon appeared once again, piercing through his body. Qin Wendian's chest was pierced through again as fresh blood flowed unceasingly, dyeing his robes red. He was in an extremely miserable state. Such a battle seemed to have no suspense at all. As long as Qin Wendian couldn't break this Tao, Qin Wendian was invincible. At this moment, outside the illusion Tao, Qin Yuanfeng and the others inclined their heads and stared at the scene in the air. They saw Qin Wendian's body being pierced through as fresh blood flowed. Elder brother! Luo Shenlei's beautiful eyes froze, feeling very worried. Even Luo Shen Qianxue also felt some worry as she stared at the sky. Only Qin Yuanfeng's expression was as calm as before. He had a deeper understanding of the legends of the ancient era. He knew how terrifying the moon god was. In that era, the moon god's eyes could envelop all living beings in the world with a single glance, causing everyone to sink into a supreme illusion, unable to extricate themselves. He could use the constellations in the sky to form the moon god's eyes. Once he activated this divine art, no one in the world would be able to escape. Right now, Qin Wendian had inherited his ability. He was naturally powerful, but it was impossible for him to be compared to a supreme god king of the ancient era. He didn't act. This was something Qin Wendian had to experience. In the future, he might have to face a true god king. A god king borrowed Qin Wendian's body to fight against him. To Qin Wendian, this was a kind of challenge. He had to subdue him. The road ahead was long. If he wanted to ask the heavens who would be the ruler of the world, he had to do things that others couldn't. He has already deciphered the secret of the heaven vault. He believed that his son Qin Wendian would definitely be an existence that transcended fate, standing above the 9 heavenly layers. Chapter 1994. It's useless to struggle. In the air, Qin Dangtun seemed to have transformed into a god king, unexcelled in the world. His eyes stared at Qin Wendian as he coldly spoke. As long as you are in this space-time, you will never be able to escape from my Tao attack. You have already lost. I am the true heaven's son, the number 1 in the supreme ancient immortal realms. Your Tao attack? Qin Wendian stared at the silhouette in the air as he asked, is this really a Tao art of yours? This was the Tao of a god king. Qin Dangtian was merely the inheritor, and he most probably wouldn't be able to digest this inheritance. This was already different from ordinary inheritances. Qin Dangtian borrowed his body to return to battle. Although Qin Wendian didn't know what the consequences would be, he knew that even if Qin Dangtian didn't die today, he wouldn't have a good ending either. The moon god had planned this for countless years, burying himself in the divine mausoleum. How could it be so simple as to find a successor? Now, this is a power that belongs to me. This is naturally my Tao, Qin Dangtian arrogantly replied. Qin Wendian, you are no longer qualified to be my opponent. Go to hell. As the sound of his voice faded, many supreme divine weapons manifested in the air, all of them wanting to kill Qin Wendian. Below, countless people stared at the battle in the air. Qin Wendian was in danger. Would Qin Yuanfeng act? However, at this moment, Qin Wendian closed his eyes. The flow of time around him seemed to have changed. Time flowed very slowly. You're right. As long as I am in this space-time, I won't be able to escape from this illusion. This illusion is the Tao of space-time, borrowing the power of the constellations in the sky to descend. If I want to break this Tao, I have to leave this space-time. Qin Wendian spoke. Under the sky, in the starry space, no matter which space-time you are in, it's the same. Qin Dangtian's voice was cold. A supreme divine weapon slashed out, wanting to take Qin Wendian's life. You're right. However, how can there be an invincible Tao technique in this world? No matter how powerful the illusion Tao is, it is only activated by borrowing the power of the stars in the sky. Qin Wendian calmly spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, the ninth astral gate in his sea of consciousness shone with a dazzling light. At this moment, beams of astral light cascaded down from the 9 heavens. Instantly, Qin Wendian was bathed in the boundless starry sky, resplendent to the extreme. The hearts of everyone trembled violently when they saw this scene. Boundless astral light cascaded down from the 9 heavenly layers, originating from different constellations. It was as though the astral energy from the 9 heavenly layers could be used by him, illuminating his body and the space he was in. The night sky was as resplendent as the day. As the boundless astral light descended, the projection of Tao energy from the starry space seemed to be weakening bit by bit. The night sky that blotted out the sun gradually faded away. Qin Dongqian's countenance changed as he stared at this scene in disbelief. How could this be possible? How could Qin Wendian break the moon god's eye, borrowing the power of the constellations in the sky? The hearts of the experts below trembled violently. The moon god's eye originally borrowed the power of the starry space to form a space-time projection, causing the entire world to sink into an illusion. However, Qin Wendian was able to communicate with the constellations in the sky, causing the astral light from the 9 heavenly layers to descend upon him. The illusion was naturally broken by itself. There was no better method to break it than this. However, Qin Wendian could borrow the power of the constellations in the sky. In that case, could it be true that he could communicate with any constellations in the 9 heavenly layers? What terrifying inheritance did he obtain from the heaven vault exactly? Qin Zheng and his wife had unsightly expressions on their faces. It was broken. The powerful moon god's eye, the inheritance from the moon god, was actually broken. What ability did you obtain in the heaven vault? Qin Dangtian stared at Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian didn't reply. He coldly stared at him. If you don't borrow the power of the God King, can your absolute beginning heavenly Tao still fight against me? Behind Qin Dangtian, the God King's shadow could still be seen. There was a pair of terrifying eyes there. However, it was no longer as powerful as before, able to drag Qin Wendian into a heaven-defying illusion with a single glance. Qin Dangtian released his absolute beginning astral soul and frenziedly transformed. In an instant, numerous pairs of eyes appeared in his absolute beginning astral soul. Each pair of eyes resembled the eyes of the moon god. This was the heaven-defying ability of the absolute beginning astral soul. It was like the beginning of all Taos, able to create the strongest and most perfect Tao. Although the moon god's eye was broken, it wasn't that Qin Dangtian didn't have the strength to fight back. Those terrifying eyes stared at Qin Wendian, wanting to imprison Qin Wendian, causing him to sink into the space-time illusion once again. However, before Qin Wendian, a terrifying storm suddenly manifested, wanting to tear apart everything. Even the space-time before him was about to shatter. It's time for me to act. Qin Wendian inclined his head and stared at Qin Dangtian. In an instant, that pair of terrifying eyes seemed to be able to cause everything in the world to sink into them. Qin Dangtian only felt the space-time around him becoming chaotic. He could see that Qin Wendian's body was also distorting. It was extremely terrifying. Before Qin Wendian unleashed his moon god's eye, Qin Wendian had already displayed his extraordinary attainments in the Tao of space-time. He was much stronger compared to the past. He already had the ability to banish. He could use his Tao to banish the attacks of his opponents into a different space-time. And now, with every step he took, time and space would distort. Not only so, Qin Dangtian could also sense that the space-time around him was also distorting. A space-time storm manifested, wanting to destroy everything. Qin Dangtian's expression turned incredibly unsightly. The absolute beginning astral soul transformed into a space-time storm. The two storms clashed together, but it only caused the space-time around him to become even more chaotic. He could sense that the space-time around him was already in chaos, gradually losing control. Bzz. Qin Dangtian's silhouette flashed. He was like a bolt of lightning wanting to rush out. But at this moment, he only saw an afterimage. A sword slashed apart space-time. The distorted space wanted to tear his body apart. Qin Dangtian instantly retreated. He only saw Qin Wenyan appearing before him, obstructing him. I will let you be destroyed in this space-time. Qin Wenyan calmly spoke, exuding incomparable confidence. He clearly told Qin Dangtian that he would kill Qin Dangtian in this space-time storm. Qin Dangtian's expression turned unsightly. He rushed towards another direction, but Qin Wentian's silhouette was like an afterimage, traversing through space and appearing before Qin Dangtian again. He punched out, causing the heavens and earth to rumble. Time and space seemed like it was about to shatter, forcing Qin Dangtian back. The distorted space-time grew even wider, unceasingly wrapping around Qin Dangtian, wanting to devour him bit by bit. Next, Qin Dangtian unceasingly tried to break through the seal, but he failed every time. He was continuously pushed back by Qin Wenyan. The space-time storm in the sky grew increasingly terrifying, like a huge bloody mouth, wanting to bury Qin Dangtian completely. Dang! Qin Zheng's wife called out. A look of worry could be seen in her beautiful eyes. Qin Zheng's countenance turned ashen as well. Has Qin Wentian's attainments in the Tao of space-time already reached such a level? If this continues on, there would be a day where he would comprehend the ultimate Tao of space-time. Arg! A scream of misery rang out. The terrifying space-time storm distorted space, tearing apart one of Qin Dangtian's arms. Fresh blood flowed. Qin Zheng roared in rage and stepped out, moving towards the battlefield. However, a gigantic palm directly appeared, transforming into the power of the six paths. With a thunderous boom, Qin Zheng's body was forced back. Qin Yuanfeng coldly glanced at him. In a battle between the two of them, it was impossible for a father to not care if someone's life was in danger. However, was Qin Zheng even able to care? He basically wasn't a match for Qin Yuanfeng. Qin Wenyan. A scream of misery rang out once more, accompanied by roars of rage. That terrifying space-time storm was already strong enough to bury Qin Dangtian. Today, was Heaven's Son going to die in the Qin clan? The people of the Qin clan all felt an intense sense of sorrow. The experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms witnessed everything. They also felt a sense of pressure. Qin Wentian's family was so domineering. From now on, another peak power would appear in the supreme ancient immortal realms, standing above all the other peak powers. Emichim? At this moment, Qin Yuanfeng furrowed his brows. After that, a terrifying black fog gushed over from afar. A space-time tunnel seemed to have been opened up as a beam of incomparably dark light directly descended from the sky, projecting itself onto the battlefield. When that beam of light shot into the space-time storm, the powerful space-time storm dissipated bit by bit, finally dissipating into nothingness. Qin Dangtian's body appeared, but he was in an extremely miserable state. Qin Wentian frowned. He inclined his head and stared at the space-time tunnel. Within the tunnel, there was a beam of moonlight, a beam of darkness. This beam of moonlight contained a terrifying Tao intent that could destroy all Taos in the world. Qin Wenyan could sense that this energy was similar to the Tao annihilation might Qin Dangtian unleashed earlier. It was just that this beam of moonlight was much stronger. It's you! Qin Yuanfeng stared at the space-time tunnel, his voice filled with imposingness and coldness. Yu Changkong. Qin Wentian coldly spoke. He naturally recognized the black fog. It was none other than Yu Changkong's ability. The terrifying darkness tunnel directly descended on Qin Dangtian. The black fog enveloped him as a voice drifted over. Qin Dangtian, the God King's inheritance you obtained isn't complete. Right now, the Qin clan is destined to cease to exist. If you want revenge, let's merge the inheritance together. Qin Dangtian inclined his head and stared at the dark crescent moon. This was the other half of the moonlight. In addition to the half moon in his inheritance, he would be able to obtain the complete moon god's inheritance. In addition, Yu Changkong's comprehension of the moon god's Tao seemed to have already surpassed him. Qin Dangtian glanced at his parents before coldly glancing at Qin Wenyan. His eyes flickered with the flames of hatred. Just like what Yu Changkong has said, the Qin clan would be destroyed. His parents might die. But what about him? Should he choose death or should he choose a different path for revenge? Fine, I will grant you your wish. Qin Dangtian coldly spoke. He no longer resisted the corrosion of the black fog. In an instant, a terrifying wave of darkness energy seized everything from his body. It was like a devouring mouth. Even his soul floated out and was devoured by the black fog. After that, he was dragged away by the black fog and was brought into the space-time tunnel. Chapter 1995. Dang! Qin Zheng and his wife called out loudly when they saw this scene. The shadow Qin Dangan glanced at them and spoke, "Father, Mother, I will definitely return for revenge." Qin Zheng's wife screamed. However, it was useless. The black fog enveloped Qin Dangtian's soul as he vanished into the dark passageway. Qin Yuanfeng frowned when he saw this scene. He knew who this person was. It was none other than the evil cultivator who entered the divine mausoleum. This person's methods were extremely evil and wanted to devour the divine mausoleum back then. However, the moon god didn't want to be devoured by him and chose Yu Changkong to obtain the other half of the inheritance. Boom! Qin Yuanfeng stepped out and actually walked towards the dark passageway. After that, he lifted his fist and punched out. At this moment, a terrifying storm gushed forth, transforming into 6 fists that could crush everything. The space-time passageway trembled unceasingly as rumbling sounds rang out. At the other end of the space-time passageway, a groan of misery could be heard. After that, an evil laughter rang out. "Tombkeeper, wait for me. You too, father and son, will also become my nourishment." That evil voice echoed through the air. The space-time passageway trembled and closed. The chaotic air currents gradually calmed down. Finally, everything seemed to have come to an end. Qin Dangtian's body fell from the air and was caught by Qin Zheng. He no longer had any signs of life. Heaven's sun has fallen. The experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms inclined their heads. This was an era-defining battle. Heaven's son Qin Dangtian returned from the divine mausoleum. After obtaining the inheritance, he was unexcelled in the world and was incomparably arrogant. However, he was still defeated in the end. Just like what Qin Wenyan said, that was the power of the inheritance. In fact, it didn't even belong to him. It was like a battle where a god king returned. His own absolute beginning Tao was extremely weak before Qin went in. Hence, after the moon god's eye was broken, Qin Dangtian had no way to contend against Qin Wenyan. He was defeated and was brought away by Qin Wenyan. Heaven's son died. The Qin clan was about to be annihilated. Qin Yuanfeng and Qin Wenyan were like the most dazzling existences of this era. There was no one who could obstruct their sharpness. Maybe, the only existences who could contend against them now were only the Western Paradise and that mysterious evil cultivator Yu Changkong. Now, how could the people of the supreme ancient immortal realms still not understand that this Yu Changkong was no longer the Yu Changkong of the past? Staring at Yu Changkong's vanishing figure, Qin Yuanfeng frowned. The existence of this Yu Changkong would be quite troublesome. Turning his gaze over, he stared at Qin Zheng and his wife. Qin Zheng and his wife also stared back at him. Their countenances were cold, filled with the flames of hatred. However, Qin Yuanfeng's heart didn't waver at all. Hatred? What right did they have to hate him? Compared to what they had done to his family, this was nothing. A bright light flashed as the judgment halberd flew out and landed in the air. After that, it actually changed its direction and aimed at Qin Zheng. Everything was over. Inclining his head, Qin Zheng stared at the air as he sighed. "The heavens want me dead, it isn't my fault. This is simply fate playing tricks on people." In this life, how much did he have to pay for his achievements today? Now, everything had turned to dust. His legendary life was about to reach its end. The judgment halberd radiated boundless light. It was like the final ray of light. It trembled in the air as it hummed. In the next instant, the judgment halberd transformed into a beam of light that shot towards Qin Zheng. It was like a bolt of lightning, penetrating through Qin Zheng's body. His body trembled violently. He inclined his head and stared at Qin Yuanfeng. "Yuanfeng, I'm truly inferior to you." As soon as he finished speaking, the might of the great path descended and blasted his body. In an instant, boundless light of divine punishment flowed around his body, and the power of judgment was released together, destroying his physical body and soul. His body gradually became illusory, as if it would disappear at any moment. Before his death, he finally admitted that he was inferior to Qin Yuanfeng, regardless of himself or his children. Once, he had done all he could to finally capture Qin Yuanfeng and become the Qin clan leader. However, all his schemes were for naught. Not only that, he fell even more miserably. His entire clan was annihilated, no longer existing. When his wife saw this scene, tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. She hugged Qin Zheng's body, and similarly, a terrifying Tao might was unleashed, devouring her body. She wanted to destroy her own Tao, destroy her own body, and enter the Yellow Springs together with Qin Zheng. In this life, they had been glorious and glorious. But now, everything was over. Qin Yuanfeng returned for revenge, their son was killed. They no longer had any hope, they only wished for death. This was fate. No matter how glorious they were in the past, how powerful they were right now, they were no different from ordinary people. The experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms stared at their gradually turning illusory figures as sorrow filled their hearts. So what if they were at the peak of the Tao-seeking realm? If they couldn't step into the supreme peak, they would ultimately be buried in the dust of the mortal world. In this world, who could transcend life and death, living a carefree life, unfettered by anyone? Only those who could transcend the 9 heavens. Since ancient times, has there been anyone who could do this? Maybe there was. They all silently mused in their hearts. The people of the Qin clan felt even more sorrow. Their clan leader Qin Zheng committed suicide to become the Qin clan leader. The Qin clan's mother followed him, and the heavenly deities of the Qin clan were all dead, not a single one was left. This was the price they had to pay for the mistakes they made. This price was too heavy. The mistakes they made in the past were too great, unforgivable. The heavenly deities of the Qin clan joined forces to kill the most outstanding genius of the Qin clan and even took away his body. How cruel was that? Now that Qin Yuanfeng returned for revenge, could they really hate Qin Yuanfeng? What qualifications did they have to hate him? Finally, the bodies of Qin Zheng and his wife dissipated, turning into dust in the wind. The clan leader of the Qin clan and the mother of the Qin clan died just like that, committing suicide in the airspace of the Qin clan to atone for their sins. This grudge ended with a full stop. Qin Yuanfeng stared at the two of them vanishing. In his heart, he didn't feel too much joy from revenge. He was very calm, like he had done something he ought to do. He wouldn't be influenced by hatred, but since it was hatred, he naturally had to repay it. Now, everything has finally ended. Inclining his head and staring at the horizons, Qin Yuanfeng stared at the experts of the Qin clan. There were experts of the Qin clan who knelt down and spoke. The Qin clan has already paid the price for the sins we committed in the past. Qin Zheng has been executed and the heavenly deities of the Qin clan are all dead. Why don't we end the grudges of the past now? You are a heaven chosen of the Qin clan. Now, please return and take control of the Qin clan. The heavenly deities of the Qin clan were all dead. If there were no heavenly deities guarding the Qin clan, even if Qin Yuanfeng died here, the Qin clan would still exist in name. A hegemonic power without any heavenly deities would only be coveted by others, and their ending would be extremely miserable. As the sound of this voice faded, many people of the Qin clan knelt down. Please return and take control of the Qin clan. If Qin Yuanfeng returned, the Qin clan would still be the Qin clan. Just like what Qin Yuanfeng said, his clan could be considered a clan. Qin Yuanfeng stared at the figures of the Qin clan, as well as the voices of those who wanted to return and take control of the Qin clan. His heart was like still water and his eyes were as calm as ever. Once, the heavenly deities of the Qin clan wanted to kill me. The Qin clan took advantage of the situation and no one stood out. But today, Qin Zheng has been executed and they want me to take control of the Qin clan. All of these are just a few words. The winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. Qin Yuanfeng calmly spoke, his words causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. Indeed, everything was just a few words: the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. The experts of the Qin clan took advantage of the situation. There was no right or wrong. The winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. It might be nothing in an empire, but in a clan, isn't this a little too heartless? What's the point of a clan like this existing? Qin Yuanfeng sighed. Because of a single sentence from him, the hearts of the people of the Qin clan tensed up once again. Disperse. Seeing that we are of the same bloodline, I will spare you all. But from now onwards, the Qin clan will no longer exist. Qin Yuanfeng waved his hand as he spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, he waved his hand, and a moment later, an extremely powerful might bore down on the symbolic buildings of the Qin clan. The might of the heavenly Tao descended, causing the buildings to collapse madly before the eyes of everyone. Turning their heads, they saw the buildings of the Qin clan crumbling into dust. The hearts of the people of the Qin clan were filled with melancholy. They understood that Qin Yuanfeng has long since given up on the Qin clan. From now onwards, the era that belonged to the Qin clan has passed. Countless people of the Qin clan felt melancholy. It's over, everything has ended. Once, as members of the Qin clan, they were filled with boundless glory. But from today onwards, the Qin clan would no longer exist in the supreme ancient immortal realms. The people of the world would only know of the names of Qin Yuanfeng and Qin Wenyin. Their names would represent the future of the Qin clan. Once, I fantasized countless times that I would come here and destroy the Qin clan, helping Father to take revenge for the hatred of the past. Who would have thought that today, Father would personally return and settle this grudge? Qin Wenyan stood beside Qin Yuanfeng as he spoke in a light voice. He also had many emotions in his heart. Qin Zheng had died. Most probably, Heaven's choice Qin Dang Tian had also ended. Even if I didn't return, you would still be standing here one day. The ending wouldn't be any different. Qin Yuanfeng stared at his son as he calmly spoke. The future of the supreme ancient immortal realms ultimately belongs to you. Let's return for now. Qin Wendian nodded. His gaze swept through the air. Those experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms could sense the coldness in Qin Wentian's eyes as their hearts trembled. From Qin Wentian's eyes, they could see a cold, killing intent. The Qin clan was destroyed. Most probably it would be their turn next. Right now, given Qin Yuanfeng and Qin Wentian's strength, they were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. There was basically no way for them to escape. Right now, Qin Wendian didn't act. Maybe it was because not all of them arrived. They didn't think that Qin Wendian would be so merciful as to spare them. One must know that not long ago, they even killed their way into the heaven vault. This debt of revenge, Qin Wendian would definitely get it back. Qin Wendian led the heavenly deities back. On the way back, Qin Yuanfeng spoke, "You have to be careful of that person." He entered the divine mausoleum together with Qin Dang Tian. According to my conjecture, he should be the reincarnation of an ancient god king. Yu Changkong? Qin Wentian's eyes were cold. I didn't expect that in this era, I would be able to encounter a different god king. For the god kings who once established the 8 great regions in the supreme ancient immortal realms, they either pursued the path of supremacy or died. However, they were filled with reluctance in their hearts and wanted to return. The divine mausoleum was laid out by the moon god for countless years, waiting for the day when he would return. Didn't you see that Qin Dang Tian doesn't seem to have inherited the moon god's power? It's more like Qin Dang Tian was possessed by the god king's power. The moon god chose Qin Dang Tian and not that evil cultivator because Qin Dang Tian was easier to control. Qin Yuanfeng slowly spoke. He stared at the sky and continued, "God kings are returning one after another. It's like they want to mark the end of this era, starting a brand new era." Chapter 1996. Up until now, Qin Wenyan already had a total of 5 god kings in direct or indirect contact with him. In ancient times, the 8 supreme heavenly deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms established the 8 regions, each ruling over an area. The heaven vault was the inheritance of God King Shi. Back then in the time realm of the mystic region, he once met with the God King of Time. The God King of Time bestowed him the Tao Bone of Time, allowing him to comprehend the Tao of Time. After that, a conflict erupted between him and the Western Paradise, and he learned that there might be a God King in the Western Paradise who was still alive. In addition to the fact that the Divine Mausoleum was created by a God King, as well as Yu Changkong's previous incarnation, 5 out of the 8 ancient God Kings had appeared. This was extremely unusual. It seemed to have the meaning of epic making. Just like what Qin Yuanfeng said, maybe the 8 God Kings would appear in their ruins or reincarnate, marking the end of their era. In that case, in this brand new era, who would be the one to control it? The Qin clan leader Qin Zheng and his wife committed suicide. Qin Dangtian was devoured by Yu Changkong. This news instantly swept through the supreme ancient immortal realms, causing a huge commotion. Another hegemonic power was destroyed. The Qin clan of the Heaven region, how powerful was it? Yet it was destroyed in a single day. It was said that after that battle, the Qin clan disbanded and the various branches split up. There were even many internal conflicts. Maybe it was because of the uneven distribution of resources and because there weren't any characters that could intimidate the other hegemonic powers. Qin Yuanfeng's name resounded through the supreme ancient immortal realms. Once, he was abandoned by the Qin clan. Today, he returned and buried the Qin clan. What a legend this was! He controlled the force of the 6 paths and could ignore the heavenly Daos. He could fight against the heavenly deities of the Qin clan alone. Qin Zheng couldn't even withstand a single strike. Someone said that Qin Yuanfeng's strength was comparable to the Grim Reaper. Everyone was speculating, between Qin Yuanfeng and the 8 ancient God Kings, who was stronger. As the Qin clan was destroyed, the secret of the Divine Mausoleum was also exposed. It was a trap set up by the ancient God King, the Moon God. He borrowed Qin Wentian's body to return and was extremely powerful, almost killing Qin Wenin. However, the number 1 genius of the supreme ancient immortal realms, Qin Wenin relied on his heaven-defying abilities to communicate with countless constellations and broke the Moon God's eye. He still defeated Qin Wenin. Qin Yuanfeng and Qin Wenin, the father and son duo, could conquer the world. The sharpness they displayed caused the supreme ancient immortal realms to sigh in admiration. Because of the appearance of the Moon God, there were more discussions about the 8 great godly kings. Many people searched for ancient records and flipped through some of the surviving legends of the 8 great godly kings. They knew of some of the deeds of the 8 great godly kings. Among the 8 great godly kings, there was an extremely evil and terrifying existence. He once wanted to use the lives of the common people to achieve his own Tao. He was incomparably cruel and the godly King Gu. God King Gu's name was extremely legendary. It was said that very few people knew of his name because he was an orphan. According to the limited ancient records, God King Gu's life was extremely miserable. This was why he hated the common people and viewed human lives as grass. He basically didn't place the lives of others in his eyes. He was incomparably cruel and once controlled the Yellow region. Everyone in the entire region feared him. God King Gu had a myriad of incarnations and could be said to be an undying existence. He could even devour the energy of others and transform into them. He cultivated the evil Tao and stepped on a path of no return. These rumors seemed to fit with a certain expert of this era. That person was none other than Yu Changkong. In addition, there were more and more rumors about Yu Changkong. Everyone in the world knew that he was a reincarnated cultivator. Hence, many people guessed that Yu Changkong was none other than the reincarnation of one of the 8 ancient God Kings, the Yellow region's God King. At this moment, Yu Changkong was in a desolate mountain range. This boundlessly vast mountain range was enveloped by a layer of black fog. There was no aura of life at all. The wild beasts here had all died, buried within the black fog. In the center of the black fog, Yu Changkong sat cross-legged. Numerous faces appeared around him, and one of the faces was none other than Qin Dangtian's face. "How long do you still want to protect him?" Yu Changkong's voice was filled with disdain. His lips curled up into a sinister smile. "I know you are filled with reluctance in your heart. You plotted for countless years and should have returned to the supreme ancient immortal realms. Yet you were captured by me. How can you be willing to be refined by me? However, the era is no longer the same. The era that belonged to you has already passed. Look at the young man who fought against Qin Dangtian and his father, who is also your tomb keeper. Are they strong? They are the main characters of this era. If you and I want to regain control of this era, we have to become one and regain the glory of the past. Yu Changkong continued, his voice filled with bewitchment. Who are you talking to exactly? Qin Dangtian stared at Yu Changkong as he coldly asked. You have no right to speak here. Yu Changkong glanced at Qin Dangtian. Could it be that you really think you can rely on your own strength to fight against Qin Wenyan? Qin Wenyan is someone who can defeat me. You, the so-called Heaven's Son, are basically not qualified to be his opponent. Without his strength, your Tao is so weak that it can't even withstand a single strike. Right now, your parents have already committed suicide and your clansmen are scattered. It's best if you don't have any delusions in your heart. Qin Dangtian's expression contorted, becoming extremely unsightly. It was like he still had his own thoughts. Look, his heart has long crumbled. Why is there a need to use him to resist me? You should know that it's not impossible for me to devour you forcibly, but I don't wish for that to happen. You should know what I need. I need your complete strength, I need your Tao. I need it to be the same as what you obtained from him. I want your Tao to be directly passed on to me. Yu Changkong's eyes gleamed with a terrifying evil light. My patience is limited. Let's work together and conquer the supreme ancient immortal realms. If you don't obey, from now on, you will disappear completely. Yu Changkong's voice grew even colder. Behind him, a crescent moon appeared, incomparably resplendent, shining down on Qin Dangtian's head. Come, give me your complete Tao. Let us perfectly fuse together, becoming a brand new God King. This era belongs to us. Yu Changkong continued to tempt Qin Dangtian. Qin Dangtian's face gradually drifted towards the crescent moon. A resplendent light radiated forth, transforming into another crescent moon that fused together with the one above Yu Changkong's head. How can this be? Qin Dangtian's expression contorted madly. Why was he unable to control himself at this moment? It felt like there was a mysterious power controlling everything. In the divine mausoleum, we became existences that transformed into the Tao. Moon God, our legend has only just begun. The smile on Yu Changkong's face grew more and more sinister. As the two crescent moons fused together, an incomparably resplendent beam of moonlight radiated forth. In an instant, this entire space turned into night. The boundless black fog dissipated as a full moon appeared, illuminating everything. Within the full moon, an incomparably imposing figure appeared. This figure was like a moon god. Finally, it has ended. Yu Changkong spoke in an extremely sinister voice. Everything in the supreme ancient immortal realms would be ended by him. Right now, it was unknown how strong that fellow from the Western Paradise was. In the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect, Qin Wenyan and the others returned. The destruction of the Qin clan could be considered to have resolved one of his worries. However, the conflict in the supreme ancient immortal realms has yet to end. Qin Wenyan knew that he still had two great enemies. Yu Changkong was someone he had to kill. He would never forget the death of Lil. However, his father said that Yu Changkong might be the reincarnation of a god king. Now that he has devoured the moon goddess, he would surely grow stronger and would recover to his peak sooner or later. In truth, Qin Wenyan already understood from the previous battle that the current Yu Changkong was no longer the Yu Changkong of the past. The other enemy was the Western Paradise. This hypocritical Buddhist sect was cruel and tyrannical. They were the main culprit behind Lil Ye's death. They were also the masterminds behind the attacks of the various experts in the supreme ancient immortal realms. They almost buried him in the Western Paradise, becoming the reincarnation Buddha. Once they succeeded, he would have already died. As for the Heaven Vault, if it wasn't for his father arriving in time, he didn't dare to imagine what the consequences would be. Even now, he still couldn't forget the farewell words of Qin, and Yu Huang in his mind. These two enemies were far stronger compared to the Qin clan. Given his current strength, he was still far from being able to deal with them. Even his father might not be able to deal with them. Those two were true god kings. At this moment, Qin Wendian and his father sat together. Qin Wendian asked, "Father, there are two strongest types of moon god Tao. The first is the moon god's eye. It can borrow the power of the heavens and cause the world to fall into a great illusion. This is the ultimate form of the space-time illusion Tao. The other is the Tao of destruction, able to destroy all Taos in the world. When the two of them are combined, there's nothing they can't do. Back then when I fought against Qin Dang Tian, just a little bit of the moon god's power was almost enough to cause me to fall. In addition, Yu Changkong's Tao of destruction isn't strong enough. If I really encounter the ultimate form of the moon god in the future, what kind of Tao would I be able to contend against it?" Qin Yuanfeng shook his head. "There are countless Taos in the world. If one doesn't reach that level, no one would know how strong the limits of Taos are. There's no need for you to think about how to comprehend a specific Tao. You should follow your heart state and comprehend your own unique Tao. You have a heavenly advantage. You can communicate with countless constellations and have boundless possibilities. Any Tao can be born from you. You have to believe in yourself and be able to create your own Tao." Qin Wendian nodded lightly. Although he won against Yu Changkong in the battle at the Qin clan, he still felt that the moon god's ability was too tyrannical. The Western Paradise had a myriad of Buddhist arts and was said to have 1,000 Tao arts and 10,000 innate techniques. Although the God King of the Western Paradise was heavily injured and had to spend countless years to recover, how strong was he now? How terrifying was his Tao? All of these gave him a lot of pressure. "Senior brother." At this moment, a voice rang out. Jun Mengchen walked over. "Mengchen." Qin Wendian smiled. "Senior brother, I've already gathered everyone. Also, keep an eye on the Thunder Clan." Jun Mengchen spoke. "Okay, I'll be there soon." Qin Wendian's eyes flashed with coldness. The people of the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect said that the Thunder Clan was extremely proactive when they attacked the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect. The first to jump out was a heavenly deity from the Thunder Clan. The disciples of the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect all died tragically. "I'll go over and wait for you." Jun Mengchen's silhouette flashed as he left. Qin Yuanfeng stared at Jun Mengchen as a smile appeared on his face. "Wenin, this junior brother of yours is truly extraordinary." Chapter 1997. The Thunder Clan was located in one of the 8 regions of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms. Back then when the experts of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms attacked the Heaven Vault, the experts of the Thunder Clan were the happiest. They were incomparably tyrannical and fearless, using thunder to pave the way, killing the people of the Divine Sect. But now, the experts of the Thunder Clan were filled with worry. The more they jumped, the more intense the fear they felt now. The Qin clan was already destroyed. A powerful hegemonic power in the Heaven region has become history. Some died, some scattered, and the heavenly deities all died. Ever since the Qin clan was destroyed, there wasn't a day where the experts of the Thunder Clan didn't live in worry. They were afraid of the future. The Thunder Clan leader went to the Western Paradise of the Universe region, but they didn't manage to come to an agreement. After the Thunder Clan leader returned, he cursed the Western Paradise for being despicable, actually throwing stones at them when they were down. As for what he discussed with the Buddhas of the Western Paradise, the people of the Thunder Clan had no idea. The heavenly deities of the Thunder Clan also discussed whether they should temporarily hide. However, the vast Thunder Clan had billions of people. Even if they fled, how could they flee? The target was too big, there was basically no way for them to flee. The only way was for them to disband and flee. But even if this was the case, the heavenly deities of the Thunder Clan felt reluctance in their hearts. After cultivating to the heavenly deity realm, what did they count as if they were stray dogs before the enemies arrived? In the end, the Qin clan still chose to wait and fight. The Thunder Clan could rely on their countless years of foundation. It wasn't that they didn't have the strength to fight. Although they were already mentally prepared, when Qin Wendian led the heavenly deity army over, The experts of the Thunder Clan still felt their hearts trembling. Fear filled their hearts. In the majestic lightning god fortress, countless people stared at the heavenly deity army in the air. This was the strength of the heaven vault. There were actually so many heavenly deities here. In the supreme ancient immortal realms, who could be mentioned in the same breath as them? Most probably only the Western Paradise could. The Heaven Vault became a hegemonic power in the supreme ancient immortal realms with a single leap, standing above the peak powers. The Thunder Clan leader stood below and stared at the sky. His divine sense swept out and he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Qin Wendian led his army here, but Qin Yuanfeng didn't come. Qin Yuanfeng was the truly terrifying existence. He was so strong that even heavenly deities couldn't win against him. Even the Qin clan leader Qin Zheng couldn't withstand a single strike from him. The heavenly deities of the Qin clan joined forces, but they were all slaughtered. Qin Wendian was like a god king, they were like ants. Luckily, he didn't clan Qin Wendian Qin clan's Qin god. Qin clan Qin world. The Thunder Clan leader called out. In the past, I did indeed offend you in some ways. However, that was the general situation and not my clan. Today, I'm willing to apologize for my actions in the past. If you need any compensation, I can give it to you. From now onwards, the Thunder Clan has nothing to do with the Heaven Vault. How about it? Qin Wendian stood in the air, staring down at the figures below. His expression was cold. What a joke! Why are people in the world always like this? When they are complacent, they would act arrogantly. When they are inferior to others, they would think of apologizing, wanting to forget everything. Everything in the world can be resolved so easily. Would there still be the word hatred? I killed your people. When your strength surpasses mine, all you have to do is apologize and everything will end. I heard that when the Thunder Clan slaughtered their way into my Qin Heavenly Divine sect, you were extremely imposing and domineering. Where is your prestige from back then? Qin Wendian laughed. However, his laughter was filled with mockery. His eyes flickered with cold killing intent. If he spared the Thunder Clan, wouldn't the disciples of the Qin Heavenly Divine sect have died for nothing? They were filled with hot blood and died for the sake of the Qin Heavenly Divine sect. If he didn't take revenge, how would he be able to face the Qin Heavenly Divine sect? In the past, although my Thunder Clan did offend you, you merely killed a few disciples of the Qin Heavenly Divine sect. My Thunder Clan is willing to pay a huge price. Why must you force us? The Thunder Clan leader showed weakness. Merely killed a few disciples of the Qin Heavenly Divine sect? Qin Wendian's eyes grew colder. He stared at the Thunder Clan leader and icily spoke. Your life can't even be compared to a single disciple of the Qin Heavenly Divine sect. Today you shall die. As the sound of his voice faded, an intense killing intent gushed forth from Qin Wendian. The might of heavenly Tao gushed forth, instantly enveloping the entire sky. Qin Wendian stepped out. He was like a god king, lofty and lofty, his divine might engulfing the entire Thunder Clan. The Thunder Clan leader stared at Qin Wendian with an unsightly expression on his face. Since Qin Wendian wasn't willing to spare the Thunder Clan, they could only fight. Not long ago, in the battle at the Qin clan, Qin Wendian defeated Qin Deng Tian, who obtained the Moon God's inheritance. In the Western Paradise, he domineeringly killed the Karma Buddha and even caused the Reincarnation Buddha Lord to die. From this, one could see that right now, Qin Wendian's strength was already above the hegemonic characters of the hegemonic powers. But even so, it wasn't as if his Thunder Clan had no way to fight back. The heavenly deity race that had existed for countless years had incomparably deep foundations. Qin Wendian only saw the Thunder Clan leader retreating. He waved his hand and in an instant, the area below the Thunder Clan suddenly erupted with boundless lightning. The entire Thunder Clan seemed to have been born with a lightning divine formation. Terrifying lightning bolts soared up into the sky, causing intense rumbling sounds of thunder to ring out. Violet lightning covered the entire sky, and in a short instant, this boundlessly vast region seemed to have transformed into a world of lightning. Everyone lowered their heads and stared at the Thunder Clan. The entire Thunder Clan was radiating a dazzling light, exuding a supreme destructive Tao intent. It was like a god-slaying grand formation, and in the center of the formation, a supremely powerful divine weapon could be seen. This was none other than the clear sky divine hammer used by the Thunder Clan leader. This supremely powerful divine weapon was the primer of this formation. Other than this, there were 8 other divine weapons in all 8 directions of the Thunder Clan. Each of these divine weapons was extremely terrifying, and now, they were all part of this divine formation. From this, one could very well imagine how terrifying the might of this formation was. Qin Wenin inclined his head and stared at the sky. Although this formation used the Thunder Clan as its foundation, the true destructive force was actually above the sky. In the boundless space, the vast sky transformed into a world of destructive lightning. Numerous divine hammers and gigantic drums appeared in the air. Clearly, the Thunder Clan had long been prepared and was waiting for their arrival. How could the powerful heavenly deity race sit still and wait for death? Careful! Qin Wenin could sense the might of this formation as he reminded the heavenly deities beside him. Everyone nodded. Now that the heavenly deity army had arrived, they mustn't let the Thunder Clan find a chance to kill them. Not a single one of them must be lost. Qin Wenin, why must you force me? The Thunder Clan leader stepped out. As the sound of his voice faded, the thunder god drums in the air started to tremble. Everyone only felt a heaven-shaking rumble in their souls, wanting to shatter everything. Their bodies also felt an inconceivable destructive might, causing some heavenly deities to groan in misery as their countenances instantly turned pale. Qin Wenin, let me ask you again. Are you willing to stop now? My Thunder Clan is still willing to apologize and offer compensation. The Thunder Clan leader spoke. He was bathed in boundless divine lightning, like a divine lord in the sky, controlling the 9 heavenly layers of lightning. He was unexcelled in this world. He still didn't want to start a war. Even if they could block this army of heavenly deities, there was still a heaven-defying existence like Qin Yuanfeng behind their backs. No one would be able to block him. Are you sure you want to resist like this? Qin Wenin glanced at the Thunder Clan leader as he spoke with cold disdain. When he saw the coldness in his eyes, as well as the arrogance in his voice, the Thunder Clan leader felt a sense of unease in his heart. However, he still stood there proudly and spoke, "Seems like you still don't want to give up. Since this is the case, we can only fight." As the sound of his voice faded, he stepped out again. Thunder rumbled, ignoring the distance between them. Everyone only felt a world-destroying might pressing down on them, wanting to destroy their souls and destroy their bodies. And at this moment, Qin Wenin stepped out. He stretched out both his hands as heavenly Tao light radiated forth. In an instant, a space-time appeared, enveloping the heavenly deities around him. At this moment, there seemed to be a mysterious energy in the air, causing the incoming divine lightning to sink into it, gradually dissipating into nothingness. Is this the power of space-time banishment? The heart of the Thunder Clan leader turned cold. He waved his hands unceasingly, causing the divine lightning in the sky to tremble violently. Qin Wentian's mind trembled violently. He could faintly sense that he was in the middle of an ocean of lightning, facing the destructive power of the ocean. He felt so tiny and insignificant in comparison. Go in. Qin Wentian coldly spat out 2 words. The boundless divine lightning that descended from the sky started to collapse, being sealed within the space-time he created. It was like they were banished, but at the same time, they seemed to be sealed there. The violet light of lightning continued to descend, but it also disappeared unceasingly. The Thunder Clan leader stared at Qin Wenin, his countenance extremely unsightly to behold. This fellow, what sort of Tao art was this? Why must you do this? Qin Wentian coldly spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, the energy from that space-time actually gushed forth, gushing towards the Thunder Clan. At this instant, the energy sealed within erupted forth, akin to the end of the world. Everything was destroyed, the buildings collapsed frenziedly. The experts of the Thunder Clan fled for their lives. Only the heavenly deities remained, protecting them. How can this be? The countenance of the Thunder Clan leader turned ashen when he saw this. Qin Wenyin was actually able to seal their offensive divine arts and use them to attack them. This was too much of a blow to his confidence. Was that merely a manifestation of the Tao of space-time? Clearly, that was impossible. There was even a sealing Tao art infused within. From today onwards, the Thunder Clan shall cease to exist. Qin Wenyin coldly spoke. That destructive space-time forcefully blasted towards the Thunder Clan. For a moment, everything in the surroundings was being destroyed. Cracking sounds rang out as the divine formation collapsed. The experts of the Thunder Clan were directly exposed to the heavenly deity army led by Qin Wenyin. The Haotian divine hammer flew back into the hands of the Thunder Clan leader. However, his countenance was ashen as a look of disappointment appeared on his face. He knew that there was no more chance. Qin Wenyin actually forcefully broke the defensive grand formation of the Thunder Clan. Chapter 1998. Qin Wenyin directly walked towards the Thunder Clan leader. His killing intent was ice-cold as a terrifying space-time Tao gushed forth, sealing the Thunder Clan leader. Kill! Jun Mingchen and the others stepped out, moving towards the experts of the Thunder Clan. Their eyes flickered with killing intent. Once, the Thunder Clan was unexcelled in the world, killing their way into the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect and even surrounding Qin Wentian's family. How arrogant was that? Now, the Thunder Clan leader said that he only killed a few disciples of the Divine Sect. How ridiculous was that? A single punch from Jun Mingchen was comparable to the power of an entire world, capable of shattering everything, burying heavenly deities and causing the sky to tremble. The might of his punch was unexcelled in this world, causing the Thunder Clan members below to explode into pieces. Little Rascal's sharp claws stretched out. He transformed into a gigantic astral beast and his claws radiated a terrifying devouring energy. When he slashed out, he wanted to devour the entire Thunder Clan, just like how he devoured the Ziwei Divine Court back then. Below, screams of misery rang out unceasingly. It was unknown how many people died. The vast Thunder Clan was soon turned into ruins. The divine formation was destroyed. How could the Thunder Clan resist the power of the gods? Back then, the various deities of the supreme ancient heavenly realms joined forces to attack the Heaven Vault, but they couldn't do so. Now, they were facing the experts of the Heaven Vault alone. From this, one could very well imagine the situation. They basically had no strength to resist at all. The Thunder Clan leader said that he only killed a few disciples of the Divine Sect. From this, one could very well imagine how arrogant he was, treating the disciples of the Divine Sect like ants. But right now, the people of the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect also treated the people of the Thunder Clan as ants. Even the Thunder Clan leader himself was also an ant in the eyes of Qin Wenyin. His life in the eyes of Qin Wenyin was inferior compared to the disciples of the Divine Sect. Hence, his fate was already determined. Screams of misery rang out unceasingly. The Thunder Clan leader howled in rage. He was suppressed by Qin Wenyin. The chaotic space-time, the folding of space, slowly destroyed his will to fight. Even with the clear sky divine hammer in his hand, he still couldn't block Qin Wentian's attacks. In terms of comprehension of the heavenly Tao, Qin Wenyin had already surpassed him. With a loud roar, the Thunder Clan leader wielded the clear sky divine hammer, breaking through all restrictions and appeared before Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin manifested in even more terrifying storm. Qin Wenyin grabbed out with his hands, creating a spatial tear that appeared before the Thunder Clan leader. The Thunder Clan leader wanted to dodge when he saw that the situation was. Stop space-time. A cold voice rang out from Qin Wentian's mouth. In an instant, the entire space-time seemed to have fallen into silence. The body of the Thunder Clan leader froze. Even the blood in his body seemed to have stopped flowing. The thunderous booms slowed down, wanting to directly tear apart the Tao of stop space-time. However, it seemed that it was already too late. That spatial tear of darkness engulfed everything, directly devouring the body of the Thunder Clan leader, sending him into that space-time. Qin Wentian's Tao arts didn't stop. A terrifying space-time sealing Dao gushed forth, blasting into that space-time. Boom, boom, boom. Thunderous sounds rang out from the void. It didn't seem to originate from this space-time, but from another space-time. It seemed like the Thunder Clan leader was retaliating, but his retaliation grew weaker and weaker. The Dao might radiating from Qin Wendian still hadn't vanished. Finally, a cold voice rang out, "Banish?" As the sound of his voice faded, that space-time was already banished to an unknown location. The Thunder Clan leader, an unexcelled heavenly deity, also vanished together with that space-time. Below, countless people who were still alive inclined their heads and stared at their clan leader being banished. Terror filled their hearts as despair appeared in their eyes. They knew that the Thunder Clan, this powerful clan that had existed for countless years, was finished. They were the same as the Qin clan, becoming a speck of dust in the history of the supreme ancient immortal realms. In the future, they would only appear in the history books, and maybe their appearance in the history books was only to serve as a foil to Qin Wendian's existence. The battle continued, but the fluctuations grew weaker and weaker until the boundlessly vast Thunder Clan was completely destroyed. The heavenly deities of the Thunder Clan were all killed. Only then did everything come to an end. The army from the Heaven Vault didn't continue attacking. They understood that the Thunder Clan would no longer be able to climb back up. They would vanish forever. At this moment, in the ruins of the Thunder Clan, a figure crawled out. His entire body was covered in blood. He inclined his head and stared at Qin Wendian, who was in the air. The wind gusted by, fluttering his white robes. He was so dazzling and outstanding, but in the eyes of this expert from the Thunder Clan, there was only the flames of anger. "Qin Wendian, you are so cruel and tyrannical. You annihilated the heavenly deities of the Qin clan and even massacred the Thunder Clan. Could it be that your rise is because you want the entire supreme ancient immortal realms to be your foil? Even if there comes a day when you dominate the supreme ancient immortal realms, the heavenly deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms would all fall, causing the once prosperous supreme ancient immortal realms to fall. Is this your purpose?" That expert from the Thunder Clan roared in rage, his eyes blazing with fire. Qin Wendian glanced at him. There were no fluctuations of emotions in his cold eyes. He turned and walked away, basically not bothering about the other party. Everyone in the world was selfish. They would only consider things from their own standpoint. When they destroyed the Heaven Vault, did they ever think about these things? Right now, why would he need to explain anything? Qin clan? Thunder Clan? If his father didn't arrive back then and the Heaven Vault was destroyed, he would have massacred the entire supreme ancient immortal realms. Let alone heavenly deities, he wouldn't even spare those at the lower cultivation realms. How would he be so merciful? He wasn't a devil, he wouldn't kill the innocent. But he was also no saint. He wouldn't be able to forgive those who wanted to kill his wife, his friends and family. Jun Mingchen's eyes flashed with anger when he heard the words of the other party. He grabbed out in the air, directly grabbing the body of the other party. He coldly spoke, "Only you guys are allowed to deal with my Heaven Vault, can't you take revenge? How laughable. So what if you killed all the deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms? My senior brother is still alive, our Heaven Vault is still alive. In the future, the supreme ancient immortal realms will have an even stronger army of heavenly deities, countless times stronger compared to the current supreme ancient immortal realms." The expression of that expert froze. Jun Mingchen's arrogant words weren't without reason. The army of heavenly deities in the Heaven Vault was an example. With the existence of the Heaven Vault, the supreme ancient immortal realms might truly become a golden age in the future. "I'll wait." That person coldly spoke. "You want to wait? Wishful thinking. You have made me very angry. Hence, you won't be able to see that day." As the sound of Jun Mingchen's voice faded, that person's expression drastically changed. After that, a giant palm imprint directly smashed down, burying him alive. They were merciful, they wouldn't kill everyone. As long as the target wasn't a heavenly deity, they could spare the lives of those who were still alive. But don't ever provoke their mercy. Next target. Jun Mingchen coldly spoke. Those people who slaughtered their way into the Heaven Vault wanted to continue being the hegemons of the supreme ancient immortal realms with a clear conscience, enjoying the blessings from all directions, enjoying boundless glory? Stop dreaming. The people of the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect wouldn't die for nothing. The grudge of the Heaven Vault must never be forgotten. Could it be that if the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect didn't care about this matter, those people would be filled with gratitude? Wrong. If they were truly merciful enough to spare these hegemonic powers, they wouldn't hesitate to slaughter their way into the Heaven Vault if there was another opportunity. In addition, they wouldn't show any mercy at all. The Che clan was also located in the supreme ancient immortal realms. When Qin Wenyin and the others arrived at the Che clan, they discovered that the divine clan that was once the #1 weaponsmithing aristocrat clan in the supreme ancient immortal realms had suddenly vanished. Numerous buildings were destroyed, transforming into ruins. It was like they were destroyed by someone. Outside the Che clan, countless people stared at the #1 weaponsmithing aristocrat clan in the supreme ancient immortal realms as they sighed. The #1 weaponsmithing aristocrat clan in the supreme ancient immortal realms actually fled? In addition, they destroyed everything in the clan, even the divine formations were destroyed by them. These fellows are truly ruthless. Chiyu spoke. They actually gave up the glory of being the #1 aristocrat clan in the supreme ancient immortal realms just like that and fled. Qin Wentian's divine sense swept through the area, but he truly didn't discover any silhouettes. At this moment, a figure flew over from the air and spoke to Qin Wenyin. "I pay my respects to sect leader." "What's going on?" Qin Wenyin asked. "I've been monitoring the movements of the Che clan outside. A period of time ago, a heaven-shaking commotion suddenly occurred in the Che clan. Boundless divine light shone as though a divine formation was activated. After that, many people directly activated the divine formations and left. After that, the divine formations of the Che clan erupted as boundless divine might radiated forth. No one knew what happened inside, and after that, things became like this." That person replied. Qin Wenyin didn't say anything. They sent people to monitor the various clans, but they wouldn't send heavenly deities. After all, every heavenly deity would be very conspicuous. If they were to be exposed, it would be extremely dangerous. Since the Che clan wanted to flee, it was only normal that they couldn't monitor them. At this moment, Chiyu walked out from behind. He spoke to Qin Wenyin. "Saint Lord, the guards of the Five Elements sect said that not long ago, a black fog descended and enveloped the Five Elements sect. After that, the people from the Five Elements sect all vanished." Yu Changkong. A cold light flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes. Yu Changkong had also started to act. Also, when he destroyed the Thunder Clan, most probably all the hegemonic powers in the supreme ancient immortal realms already knew about it. It was impossible for there to be no spies in the vicinity of the Thunder Clan. Hence, everyone would want to retreat. The Che clan was like this, the Five Elements sect was the same as well. These heavenly deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms clearly wouldn't sit still and wait for death. "Let's return for now." Qin Wenyin fell silent for a moment before he spoke. Everyone nodded. Seems like the situation in the supreme ancient immortal realms would undergo a huge change. In the future, it might no longer be the era where the 8 regions rose up together. Qin Wenyin and the others left the Che clan and returned to the Heaven Vault. The ruins of the Che clan were still there, but no one knew that there was another independent dimension sealed there. In that dimension, the sky was golden and boundless divine flames could be seen within. It was like they wanted to forge the #1 divine weapon in the supreme ancient immortal realms. Despite the efforts of the entire Che clan, even after so many years, this divine weapon has yet to be forged. They have left. At this moment, someone walked to the side of the Che clan leader and spoke. The Che clan leader nodded his head lightly. They used the divine formation to escort the Che clan leader away, but it was merely a smokescreen. In truth, the experts of the Che clan had all entered this spacetime and used the divine weapon that was being forged to conceal the auras of this spacetime. Qin Wendian also wouldn't be able to discover them. Chapter 1999. After Qin Wenyan returned to the Heaven Vault, news from various places started to arrive. The God Extermination Palace, Prison God Clan and the other peak powers that participated in the attack on the Heaven Vault have all vanished. They were the same as the Che Clan and Five Elements sect. Before this, they had a trace of hope like the Thunder Clan. But after the Thunder Clan was destroyed, they completely woke up. Qin Wenyan would make them disappear from the supreme ancient immortal realms. When the news spread out in the primeval times, only then did the people of the world truly realize that the era where the top powers of the 8 regions rose together had already completely become history. An era had ended. In this era, the experts of the 8 regions contended against each other, vying for supremacy. Eventually, a delicate balance was formed. The hegemonic powers of the 8 regions ruled the supreme ancient immortal realms. Everyone in the world submitted to them. In fact, they even divided the immortal realms in the lower world with the exception of Azure Mystic. But all of this, with the rise of the Heaven Vault, no longer existed. After that, some rumors circulated in the supreme ancient immortal realms. Those powers that vanished all followed Yu Changkung. In order to avoid Qin Wenyan's pursuit, they all became Yu Changkung's disciples. Yu Changkung might have the strength of 2 god kings. In this new era, there would definitely be a place for him. In addition, he would only grow stronger and stronger. After these rumors spread out, everyone in the world said that the old era had passed. The current era of the supreme ancient immortal realms belonged to 3 major powers. Qin Yuanfeng and Qin Wenyan were the leaders of the Heaven Vault, which was also known as the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect. Other than Qin Yuanfeng, the other powers all relied on themselves to rise up. Because of the Heaven Vault's unique advantage, they were able to create an army of heavenly deities. Right now, even the supreme ancient immortal realms had to look up to them. Other than being extremely powerful, the Heaven Vault also had a good relationship with the Tiandao Sacred Academy. Although the Tiandao Sacred Academy wouldn't interfere with external affairs, the headmaster of the Tiandao Sacred Academy who was in seclusion was someone who couldn't be ignored. Finally, Qin Wenyan was the inheritor of the Grim Reaper. They forced the various hegemonic powers to submit to Yu Changkung. Hence, one could say that the old era of the Heaven Vault had ended. The second power naturally belonged to Yu Changkung. He who had the power of 2 god kings was extremely mysterious and evil. Not only that, he was able to make those experts from the supreme ancient immortal realms submit to him. They had the power to threaten the Heaven Vault and were unfathomably deep. As for the final power, there was no need to doubt that it was the Western world. This world had existed for countless years and had always ruled over the Western world. There had never been any disturbances and there were many Buddha lords among them. There were also quite a few heavenly deity-level sacred Buddhas. But what was truly terrifying was that it was rumored that the God King who founded the universe region, the Lord of the Western Paradise, might not have died yet and was still alive. The 3 legs of the supreme ancient immortal realms once again reached a delicate balance. This caused the supreme ancient immortal realms to have a period of peace. During this period of time, there were many new people rising up and old people falling. Along with the current situation in the supreme ancient immortal realms, many things regarding Qin Wenyan were dug out. The history of his growth was slowly revealed to the world. Once, who would have thought that a young genius who came from the mystic region and became famous after participating in the convention of the myriad realms would end an era and create a brand new history? At that time, Qin Wenyan was merely a young man with slightly more outstanding talent. He was known as a transcendent-level world overlord and was given the title of Qingqing Realm Lord. If one traced back to the past, the title of Qingqing Realm Lord was something he fought his way up step by step. He was once an insignificant immortal and had even become a bandit, working under the Li-Fire Empyrean. Finally, he climbed up step by step, replacing the Li-Fire Empyrean and killing the lifelong Realm Lord. Up until today, everyone in the world looked up to him in admiration. Every legendary character would have an extremely tough history. At that time, no one knew about them. They experienced all sorts of trials and tribulations until one day, everyone in the world knew of them. Qin Wenyan was the legend of this era. Right now, in the Qingqing realm, there would be a large number of cultivators going out to see the outside world. For example, they would go to the heaven region, to the boundless sea region. The legends of Qin Wenyan were being circulated around the Qingqing realm every day. The juniors all had boundless yearning in their hearts, all of them fantasizing that one day they would be able to create their own legend. However, how could it be so easy to create a legend? Qin Wenyan didn't know that even though he didn't return to the Qingqing realm, he had already become the spiritual pillar of the Qingqing realm, inspiring countless juniors to cultivate. They were like moths flying into a flame, pursuing their own path to the peak. Time flowed by. The tripartite balance of power in the supreme ancient immortal realms was unshakable. Even if there were new Empyreans in the supreme ancient immortal realms, or even heavenly deities, they basically didn't have the qualifications to establish a power. Everyone in the world was very clear that the current supreme ancient immortal realms belonged to the three peak powers. Also, the peace now was merely the calm before the storm. The three strongest powers in the supreme ancient immortal realms would clash sooner or later. The victor would become the supreme ancient immortal realms king. Right now, many people in the supreme ancient immortal realms were discussing. In the future, which of the three strongest powers in the supreme ancient immortal realms would be able to become the supreme ancient immortal realms king? Leaving aside the newly risen powers, even for the hegemonic powers of the past, the Qianquan sect and Nine Heavens mystical palace, they had already lost the qualifications to contend for the position of the supreme ancient immortal realms king. They could only be spectators. But because they didn't offend any of the hegemonic powers, they were still able to exist in the supreme ancient immortal realms unscathed. They had once formed an alliance with Qin Wenyan. Although they left the alliance, Qin Wenyan wasn't someone who would repay kindness with enmity. After all, these two hegemonic powers had helped him before. After that, they didn't act against the heaven vault and naturally wouldn't act against them. In addition, because they were in the heaven region, they were in the same region as the heaven vault. Even if Yu Changkong and the Western Paradise had some thoughts, it wouldn't be good for them to act against them. At this moment, outside the heaven vault, in the Qin heavenly divine sect, two figures flew over. One was a man and the other was a woman. The two of them exuded transcendent auras and the woman was extremely beautiful. They were none other than the Qianquan sect and Nine Heavens mystical palace. The two of them inclined their heads and stared at everything before them. Right now, the Qin heavenly divine sect has expanded again compared to the past. It was incomparably majestic and was also near the heaven vault. Right now, it was already a holy ground of the supreme ancient immortal realms. The number of people who came here to pay their respects was countless times more compared to the number of people who went to the Qianquan sect and Nine Heavens mystical palace. The affairs of the world are unpredictable. Have you ever thought that in this place, you would be able to stand at the peak of the supreme ancient immortal realms? In addition, you would even have the chance to become the king of the supreme ancient immortal realms. The Qianquan sect leader sighed. The beautiful eyes of the Nine Heavens mystical maiden stared ahead. She didn't say anything. Indeed, she didn't expect this. The changes in the supreme ancient immortal realms were simply too fast. The entire era was changing. Junior pays my respects to the Qianquan sect leader and Nine Heavens mystical maiden. At this moment, someone from the Qin heavenly divine sect walked out and bowed. The statuses of these two were transcendent and they were once close to Qin Wenyan. Someone in the divine sect recognized them. We are here to pay our respects to sect leader Qin. The Qianquan sect leader nodded. Sect leader should be cultivating in the heaven vault. Sect leader, please enter the divine sect to rest first. We need to report this to the upper echelons. Can sect leader and Nine Heavens mystical maiden wait a little longer? That person spoke. The Qianquan sect leader and Nine Heavens mystical maiden started. After that, they nodded lightly, feeling a little rueful in their hearts. Right now, given their statuses, they actually needed to report and wait to meet with Qin Wenyan. If it was in the past, who wouldn't come over immediately if they wanted to meet with him? But now, things were different. They also understood this point and were accepting this change. Given Qin Wentian's current status, even if he didn't want to meet with them, what could they do? Qin Wentian already had the qualifications to do so. After all, they were the ones who betrayed the alliance. Sect leader and Nine Heavens Mystical Palace, please. That person who spoke politely spoke, leading the two of them into the divine sect. After they left, the person at the side spoke. Did you discover that you are actually very calm when facing the Qinkuan sect leader and Nine Heavens Mystical Maiden? Imichem? That person started. After that, he drew in a deep breath, feeling a sense of disbelief in his heart. The two of them were the Qinkuan sect leader and the #1 immortal in the mortal world. He still remembered that in the past, he would tremble with trepidation when facing a hegemonic-level world overlord. This was simply unbelievable. This was the confidence that came from the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect. We of the Divine Sect don't need to look up to anyone. As long as we work hard in our cultivation and are loyal to the Divine Sect, in the future when we enter the Heaven Vault to cultivate, we would also be able to become heavenly deities. He stared at the Heaven Vault in the air as a vision appeared in his heart. After the Qinkuan sect leader and Nine Heavens Mystical Maiden entered the Divine Sect, there were people with higher statuses receiving them. After waiting for some time, Qi Yu and Jun Mingchen came out from the Heaven Vault to meet with the two of them. Sect leader and Mystical Maiden, I wonder what's the matter? Qi Yu stared at the two of them as he calmly spoke. Jun Mingchen stood in front with his hands clasped behind his back. The aura radiating from the two of them caused the Qinkuan sect leader's expression to stiffen. Was this their change? Right now, the two of them were fighting there. Their auras were no longer any weaker compared to him. It was like they could stand on equal footing with him. We wish to meet with Qin Wentian to discuss some matters. The Qinkuan sect leader spoke. Before Qi Yu could say anything, Jun Mingchen's eyes flashed. He calmly spoke. Senior brother is very busy and is still in the midst of cultivation. If there's nothing important, you can just tell us about it. He did have some opinions about the Qinkuan sect and Nine Heavens Mystical Palace betraying the alliance back then. Since they were allies, they should advance and retreat together. But the other party chose to retreat because of the Western world. Hence, his tone wasn't polite at all. The Qinkuan sect leader felt somewhat unhappy when he heard Jun Mingchen's words. However, it wasn't appropriate for him to say anything. In addition, he could faintly sense that leaving aside his aura, just in terms of strength, this young man before him wasn't inferior to him at all. He had heard of the battle in the Heaven Vault back then. Jun Mingchen was the clan leader of the war chariot race and was extremely powerful. Now, so much time has passed and there was also a secret realm in the Heaven Vault that could change the flow of time. Although he was a junior, in the cultivation world, seniority was never determined based on age. He really couldn't say anything about Qin Wentian's impoliteness. Mingchen, how can you speak to the Qinkuan sect leader in such a manner? At this moment, a voice rang out from the Heaven Vault. It was none other than Qin Wentian's voice. Senior brother. Jun Mingchen inclined his head and called out. His tone was filled with reluctance, but since his senior brother Qin spoke, he wouldn't retort. Sect leader and mystical maiden, please come to the Heaven Vault for a discussion. Mingchen is still young. I hope seniors won't take offense. Qin Wentian's voice was polite. The Qinkuan sect leader and Nine Heavens mystical maiden both nodded. Even if Qin Wentian didn't apologize, they had nothing else to say. Chapter 2000. In the Heaven Vault, numerous floating palaces could be seen, bathing in boundless astral light, exuding a majestic aura. At this moment, the Qinkuan sect leader and Nine Heavens mystical maiden came to a floating palace. This floating palace was located in the center. It was none other than the place where Qin Wentian resided. Outside the palace, there were many experts guarding it. Right now, there were already many people in the Heaven Vault. This floating palace wasn't a place they could easily disturb. After all, Qin Wentian resided there, as well as his family and friends. The Qinkuan sect leader and Nine Heavens mystical maiden glanced at the two figures guarding the floating palace. One of them radiated devil might, like a devil god, while the other radiated a powerful battle intent. Their existences caused the hearts of the Qiankuan sect leader and 9 heavens mystical maiden to involuntarily tremble violently. Because the 2 guards of the floating palace were actually heavenly deities. Heavenly deities guarding the entrance, who else could there be in the supreme ancient immortal realms? As the Qiankuan sect leader and 9 heavens mystical maiden, they naturally had vast experiences and there was nothing that could shock them. But this time around, when they came to the heaven vault, even before they saw Qin Wenyin, they were already deeply shocked. Heavenly deities guarding the entrance, there was no need to explain what this meant. This meant that the current heaven vault, the number of heavenly deities was most probably already. When they thought of this, their hearts trembled again. However, they still did their best to endure it as they walked into the floating palace. On the way there, they met some people. Just like what they expected, many of the people they met were at the heavenly deity realm. It was like in this place, heavenly deities were no different from mortals. Finally, they came to a place. Qin Wenyin appeared before them and smiled. Sect leader and 9 heavens mystical maiden, please forgive me for not being able to welcome you. The 2 of them surveyed Qin Wenyin. Right now, Qin Wenyin was even more imposing than before. With a single glance, he gave off an unfathomable feeling. Back then, he was already the #1 genius of the supreme ancient immortal realms who could suppress the Thunder Clan leader. Right now, it was already unimaginable how strong his cultivation base was. But there was no doubt that he was more than enough to deal with the 2 of them. This point was still something they could accept. The Qiankuan sect leader smiled bitterly. Earlier, he still felt unhappy in his heart because Qin Wenyin directly summoned them but didn't welcome them. But after they came here, this feeling vanished. He truly understood that right now, Qin Wenyan's status was no longer the same level as him. If they could meet him now, this was already a sign of respect. If not, given how they had betrayed the alliance back then, so what? Wenyan clan sect leader didn't? Qin can insect. Qin, Chen, and sect. Sit. Qin Wenyan stretched out his hand. The Qiankuan sect leader and 9 heavens mystical maiden nodded lightly. After that, they sat down in front of Qin Wenyan. Beside them, a beautiful maiden walked over to pour tea for them. This maiden was pure and beautiful, like someone from a painting. However, what shocked the Qiankuan sect leader and 9 heavens mystical maiden was her cultivation base. She was a heavenly deity. They could sense that the majority of the people in Qin Wenyan's floating palace were heavenly deities. Sect leader Qin, this maiden's beauty is outstanding. I wonder who you are? The Qiankuan sect leader probed, wanting to know the identity of this maiden. I'm a maid by the sect leader's side. I'm responsible for taking care of the sect leader's daily needs. The beautiful maiden blinked her eyes, appearing extremely mischievous. The Qiankuan sect leader perspired. A heavenly deity as a maid. He felt that his heart was pounding faster than before. Sect leader, don't listen to this lass's nonsense. Her name is Nanfeng Xinga. She's a good friend of mine. We're already acquainted with each other in Azure Mystic. Qin Wenyin rolled his eyes at Nanfeng Xinga. Nanfeng Xinga didn't mind and smiled mischievously. So this is the case. The Qiankuan sect leader nodded lightly, but he sighed in his heart. This was the true meaning of when a man achieved the Tao. His chickens and dogs also ascended to the heavens. The good friends and subordinates he brought back from Azure Mystic were all heavenly deities now. Was the heaven vault really so mystical? He was thinking that if they didn't betray the alliance back then, would an army of heavenly deities appear in their Qiankuan sect now? Sect leader Qin, the flow of time in this floating palace should be different from the outside world, right? I actually can't sense how much the flow of time has changed. The 9 heavens mystical maiden curiously asked. How could she not be shocked? Even a maiden from Azure Mystic was already a heavenly deity. Other than the heaven vault, this holy land for cultivation, most probably, time was something that couldn't be neglected. Right now, the flow of time here is already close to 1,000 times faster than the outside world. Qin Wenyan smiled. The 9 heavens mystical maiden nodded. No wonder, the heaven vault had a unique advantage in terms of cultivation. allowing one to comprehend the Tao on the constellations in the sky. In addition to the change in the flow of time, too many years have passed here. Right now, they could already be certain that heavenly deities were no longer rare in the heaven vault. Most probably, they could be seen everywhere. The Qiankuan sect leader and 9 Heavens mystical maiden exchanged mutual glances. They initially came here because they wanted to discuss some conditions. But now, they no longer had any confidence at all. Right now, it seemed that having the Qiankuan sect and the 9 Heavens mystical palace in the heaven vault wasn't of much use anymore. For some things in the past, we were also forced to do so. I'm sure you should know how strong the Western world is. That God King has never appeared, and that by itself is already a huge threat. Back then, they wanted us to leave the heaven vault. We were also helpless. The Qiankuan sect leader slowly spoke. Qin Wenyan waved his hand, stopping him from continuing. He smiled. Sect leader, there's no need for you to explain anything. With regards to this, I understand and can understand. In addition, back then, I fought shoulder to shoulder with sect leader and fairy before. I won't place such a minor matter in my heart. The Qiankuan sect leader and 9 Heavens mystical maiden's choice wasn't wrong. They did it for themselves. None of them wanted to face the Western world head-on. In that case, I can set my heart at ease. The Qiankuan sect leader nodded lightly. Qin Wendian lifted his teacup and took a sip. He didn't say anything. He believed that the Qiankuan sect leader and 9 Heavens mystical maiden didn't come here just to apologize. If they wanted to apologize, they would have come long ago. Why would they wait until now? At this moment, Qin Wendian was waiting for the Qiankuan sect leader to speak. As expected, after a moment of silence, the Qiankuan sect leader spoke. Sect leader Qin, this time around, other than apologizing for some matters in the past, we also hope to form an alliance with the Heaven Vault. Alliance? Jun Mingchen, who was at the side, frowned. Do you think that given the current strength of our Heaven Vault, we still need an alliance like the Qiankuan sect? In addition, an alliance that might abandon you the moment you encounter danger. What's the point of having an alliance like this? The Qiankuan sect leader had an awkward expression on his face, but he had no way to refute Jun Mingchen's words. Although his words weren't pleasant to the ears, Jun Mingchen's words sounded like the truth. Before this, they were still confident that the Heaven Vault needed their strength. But recently, such confidence had completely vanished. But it was precisely because he saw how strong the Heaven Vault was that he was even more determined to form an alliance with the Heaven Vault. Right now, there were 3 hegemonic powers in the supreme ancient immortal realms. Their Qiankuan sect and 9 Heavens mystical palaces' positions were extremely awkward. Maybe, they didn't need to choose a side and might be able to safely pass the day when the 3 hegemonic powers were determined. But what about after that day? What would the Qiankuan sect and 9 Heavens mystical palace do? Once the Western paradise became the king of the supreme ancient immortal realms, everyone in the world would cultivate the Buddhist Tao. Most probably, they would have nothing to do with it anymore. If Yu Changkong won, that would be even more terrifying. Back then, God King Gu was already a reclusive and evil person. If he became the king, the Qiankuan sect and 9 Heavens mystical palace wouldn't have a good ending. They only trusted Qin Wentian's character. They hoped that Qin Wendian would win. Also, after coming to the Heaven Vault, they felt that the possibility of the Heaven Vault becoming the king was very high. Since they supported Qin Wendian, it would naturally be better if they joined before the victor was determined. At that time, they would no longer be in an alliance, they would have to submit to him. Their statuses would be completely different. Just by looking at Jun Mingchen's attitude, they knew that once the Heaven Vault became the king, the people around Qin Wendian would definitely look down on them. If they joined now, they would still be able to fight side by side. This time around, Qin Wendian didn't stop Jun Mingchen. From the looks of it, although Qin Wendian didn't hate them for betraying the alliance, it wouldn't be easy for him to accept them again. The matter in the past was indeed our fault. In the future, such a thing will definitely not happen again. Right now, the situation in the supreme ancient immortal realms is already very clear. Since we joined the Heaven Vault, it means that we are completely tied together with the Heaven Vault. The Qinkuan sect leader explained. Easy to say. What if the Heaven Vault starts a war against the other two hegemonic powers when they are at a disadvantage? What if the other two hegemonic powers tempt you guys to betray them and deal with the Heaven Vault instead? Senior brother, you have to be on guard against the mistakes of others. Jun Mingchen spoke. You are going overboard. The beautiful eyes of the 9 heavens mystical maidens stared at Jun Mingchen. How can we be such people? Whether we are or not isn't something that can be said with words. Jun Mingchen calmly spoke. Qin Wenyan turned his gaze to Nanfeng Xinge, who was at the side, as he asked, Xinge, what do you think? Nanfeng Xinge warmly smiled. Xinge naturally believes in the sincerity and character of sect leader and fairy Qiankuan. But after all, that unhappy incident has already happened before. It's impossible for the Heaven Vault to completely accept them without harboring any ill feelings in their hearts. If sect leader and fairy Qiankuan are truly sincere, you can bring your people into the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect and become one of our factions. In the future, we will see sect leader and fairy Qiankuan's performance before we decide if we will allow the experts from the Qiankuan sect and 9 Heavens Mystical Palace to enter the Heaven Vault for cultivation. If not, if sect leader and fairy Qiankuan's strength is too great and there's another unhappy incident, it would be a calamity to our Heaven Vault. The Qiankuan sect leader had an unhappy expression on his face. Qin Wenyan smiled. Sect leader, fairy Qiankuan, let's not talk about such unhappy matters for now. No matter what, we have fought side by side before. Even if one day the Heaven Vault becomes the king of the supreme ancient immortal realms, we definitely won't make things difficult for the two of you. The Qiankuan sect leader and 9 heavens mystical maidens sighed silently in their hearts. Qin Wentian's words indicated that he had tacitly agreed to Nanfeng Xinge's words. After all, they betrayed the Heaven Vault first. If Qin Wenyan accepted them like before, it would be hard to convince everyone. The Heaven Vault was no longer the Heaven Vault of the past. It was now one of the 3 hegemons of the supreme ancient immortal realms. After casually chatting for some time, the Qiankuan sect leader and 9 heavens mystical maiden bid farewell and left. Before they left, they inclined their heads and glanced at the sky. The Qiankuan sect leader had a feeling of a hero past his prime. The era has changed. The world now was no longer their world. Several days later, news circulated out of the supreme ancient immortal realms. The Qiankuan sect and 9 heavens mystical palace have moved to the Heaven Vault. This time around, they didn't form an alliance. They joined them. Chapter 2001. With the addition of the Qiankuan sect and 9 heavens mystical palace, the strength of these 3 hegemonic powers became even more stable. In the supreme ancient immortal realms, other than these 3 hegemonic powers, there weren't any other peak powers. In the boundless starry space of the Heaven Vault, a strange scene could be seen. A gigantic golden demon had golden pores all over his body, devouring the astral light. Boundless astral light flowed into his body, causing his gigantic body to shine with the resplendent light. He was like a divine beast in the starry space. In the Heaven Vault, countless people saw this scene. Qin Wenyan stood at the boundary of the floating palace, staring up at the starry space. Beside him, Qin Qing quietly leaned against him. They were a pair of matchless lovers. Right now, Mo Qingqing's cultivation base has also broken through to the heavenly deity realm. Although her talent was slightly inferior, after cultivating for tens of millions of years in the secret realm, in addition to the cultivation conditions Qin Wenyan created for her, she finally comprehended the heavenly Tao and stepped into the deity realm. Not only for her, just like what the Qiankuan sect leader and 9 heavens mystical maiden saw back then, the Heaven Vault now had an army of heavenly deities. If one didn't enter the Heaven Vault, they wouldn't be able to imagine such a grand scene. Little Rascal is growing more and more powerful. Mo Qingqing gently spoke. Everyone in the Heaven Vault was growing stronger, but they still chose to remain in seclusion. They had time to wait. The Heaven Vault would only grow stronger as time passed. Little Rascal can already absorb the astral daos of the various heavenly deities. It's rumored that the ancient heaven-devouring beasts could devour the sun, moon, and constellations. This isn't a lie. Qin Wendian nodded lightly. At this moment, the gigantic body in the starry space started trembling and the tremors grew increasingly intense. What's going on? Qin Wendian's eyes flashed. Such a situation had never appeared before. What was happening to little rascal? What's going on? Mo Qingqing asked in a light voice. Let me take a look. Qin Wendian's silhouette flashed as he soared through the air, swiftly arriving in the starry space. His body passed by little rascal's gigantic body and arrived before its head. Little rascal's eyes were closed, its gigantic body was trembling violently as it let out a low-sounding roar. No, don't. Little rascal shook his head unceasingly as his body trembled even more intensely. Qin Wendian furrowed his brows. He placed his palm on little rascal's face as a mysterious energy flowed into him. With a loud roar, the starry sky shook, and the stars in the sky seemed to tremble. The huge eyes opened, and he saw Qin Wendian. Wendian. Little rascal called out in a light voice. What happened? Qin Wendian asked softly. I seem to have seen my parents. Little rascal spoke, his words causing Qin Wendian's body to tremble. Little rascal was a heaven-devouring beast king. Back then when he met Mo Qingqing, it was all because of him. But at that time, little rascal was already alone. He had no companions or relatives. He was born with many unique abilities. Once, he was also curious. What sort of people would little rascal's parents be? Could the parents of a heaven-devouring beast king be simple? Demon gods were different from humans. Although the bloodline of humans was important, they could still cultivate later on. But for demonic beasts, their bloodline was even more important. For example, little rascal was a heaven-devouring beast king. How could his parents be ordinary demonic beasts? They must surely be incomparably powerful heaven-devouring beasts. How did you see them? Qin Wendian asked. Little rascal was cultivating here and didn't exit the heaven vault. How could he see his parents? Earlier when I was cultivating and devouring the Tao of the constellations, it felt like I entered a dream and saw my parents. They were the same as me, devouring the constellations. At that instant, it felt like I passed through time and saw my parents. They appeared in my memories. Little rascal's eyes turned red, as though he was extremely agitated. The scenes he saw earlier continued to play out in his mind. Did you leave anything behind to know how they are now? Qin Wendian asked. No, something happened to them. They wanted to devour the constellations but suffered a backlash and were heavily injured. After that, a blurry figure appeared and acted against them. As for what happened after that, I have no way to see it. Little rascal gritted his teeth and roared in a low voice, My parents are there. Who is that blurry figure? He actually dared to take advantage of them? Despicable. Devouring the constellations? Qin Wendian's heart pounded violently. This was too crazy. Little rascal's origin was actually so terrifying. He thought of some things in his mind and had some conjectures, but he still felt that this was unbelievable. Could this be real? Let's go back and take a rest first. Qin Wendian spoke in a light voice. Little rascal nodded. After that, his gigantic body shrunk back to the size of a snow-white little demon, returning to his adorable appearance as he leaped into Qin Wendian's embrace. Qin Wendian returned, his eyes gleamed with sharpness. Little rascal's words earlier caused him to feel an impulse to help little rascal find out his origins. After returning to the floating palace, Qin Wendian told little rascal to go and rest while he went to look for his father Qin Yuanfeng and grandfather Luo Shenchuan. The three of them gathered together. Wendian, do you have anything you want to ask? Luo Shenchuan asked. Grandfather, I once heard you mentioning some things about the God King of the 8 regions. In the ancient records, the God King of the Desolate region has the title of Desolate. There are no other names that have been passed down. Grandfather once said that God King Desolate might not be a human but a demonic beast instead. Is that right? Qin Wendian asked. The era of the God Kings of the 8 regions is too long ago. Many ancient records are incomplete and there's no way to verify them. The people of the world only know about them from the ancient records that have been passed down. I once understood the history of the desolate region, and according to my conjecture, God King Desolate might really be a demonic beast. I remember I once saw a tattered ancient record that recorded some of the deeds of God King Desolate. He could devour the sun and moon, pluck the stars from the heavens. According to those clues, God King Desolate's true form might be the same as your demonic beast companion, a heaven-devouring beast. Luo Shenchuan spoke. Naturally, the ancient records can no longer be found. This is merely my conjecture. Wenin, you are asking about this because you discovered something? Luo Shenchuan was somewhat curious. Qin Wentian nodded. Not long ago, Little Rascal was cultivating in the starry space. According to him, a dreamlike memory appeared in his mind. He saw his parents devouring the constellations in the starry space and suffered a backlash. After that, they were ambushed by a mysterious person, and I don't know what happened after that. Hence, I have a conjecture, but the timing doesn't match up at all. Hence, I wanted to ask my grandfather and father. There's no problem with the timing. Qin Yuanfeng spoke. At the God King realm, there's nothing strange about any methods. The moon god created the divine mausoleum and returned countless years later. If God King Desolate really had a descendant back then, he might have arranged for his descendant to appear in the world countless years later. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed. If this was the case, it was truly possible. But who was the person who ambushed Little Rascal's parents back then? Qin Wentian spoke in a light voice. Most probably, they had to find that person before they could get an answer. If your conjecture is right, Little Rascal is the descendant of God King Desolate. In that case, even if his parents were heavily injured, the person who dared to ambush them shouldn't be too much weaker. There's a high possibility that he is in existence on the same level as God King Desolate. Qin Yuanfeng replied. Luo Shenchuan nodded as well. At the God King realm, even if they were injured, heavenly deities wouldn't be able to deal with them. In that case, there's a high possibility that the other God Kings are here. Yu Changkong might know something about this. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed. Could his conjecture be correct? Right now, Little Rascal's performance was getting more and more heaven-defying. If not, he wouldn't have made such a bold conjecture. In an independent space-time in the Western Paradise, there was a golden world with golden Buddhic light. These Buddhic lights were like holy light, illuminating the entire golden world. In this golden world, there was actually an incomparably gigantic figure. This figure seemed somewhat illusory and surreal, like it would vanish at any moment. Golden and holy Buddhic lights locked onto his gigantic body. Every part of his body seemed to have a Buddha lamp burning. These Buddhic lamps were connected together, transforming into a terrifying chain. At this moment, a blurry figure suddenly appeared in the Buddhic light. This figure was also illusory, one couldn't see his features clearly. His palms were pressed together, clearly he was a Buddhist cultivator. After he came to this space-time, the Buddhic lamps all flowed into his body. As the Buddhic lights entered his body, his illusory body seemed to become more corporeal. It has been so many years. Have you not recovered yet? That gigantic figure suddenly opened his eyes and spoke with an incomparably imposing and cold voice. Although he was very weak, he still exuded a terrifying aura. Slowly strip away the heavenly Daos you once devoured. One day, when you vanish, my Tao will be close to reaching grand completion. In the future, when I verify my Tao and transcend the 9 heavenly layers, you will have to play a part in it. The monk spoke in a light voice. His voice was ethereal and somewhat surreal. Do you think you can succeed? Countless years ago, I already saw the future. Your destruction isn't far away anymore. So, you sent your descendant to this era? The monk calmly spoke, his words causing that gigantic figure to tremble violently. After that, he asked, "My descendant? It's fine if you don't want to admit it. He has already appeared. I didn't expect that back then. You still had a trump card hidden up your sleeves. Sadly, all of this will only benefit me." That monk's voice didn't fluctuate at all. He continued to absorb the Buddhic light bit by bit, and only after a long time did he leave this spacetime. That gigantic figure abruptly let out a heaven-shaking roar, as though he was greatly stimulated. Has he already arrived at this era? He really wanted to go out and take a look. Chapter 2002. The ruins of the Che clan was once turned into ruins when the Che clan left. But now, it was filled with magnificence and magnificence. Numerous majestic palaces could be seen, and this place didn't belong to a single power. It was occupied by many powers. Right now, the three hegemons of the supreme ancient immortal realms might not be interested in the ruins of the Che clan. But to the other hegemons of the supreme ancient immortal realms, this place was a priceless treasure. During these years, many battles were fought and a balance was reached. Some hegemons occupied this place and refused to leave, wanting to continue excavating the treasures of the Che clan. Once, the Che clan was extremely prosperous and was comparable to an entire country. It wouldn't be so easy to excavate all the treasures here. However, these hegemons didn't know that in another space-time below the ruins, the experts of the Che clan were all here. Golden divine flames burned the world as a gigantic world furnace appeared in this space. It was like the flames of primordial chaos, exuding a heaven-shaking might. Countless divine formations could be seen inscribed in the surroundings. If there weren't these divine formations, the primordial chaos divine flames would be able to easily destroy this entire space. But even with the divine formations at this moment, there were signs of it failing to suppress the flames. Within the primordial chaos divine flames, a blurry chaotic divine weapon could be seen. It constantly transformed into different forms and spewed out energy that destroyed the divine formations bit by bit, wanting to break free from the restraints and tear this space apart. How can this be? The expression of the Che clan leader was extremely unsightly. They spent so much effort, generations after generations of Che clan experts worked hard, and many heavenly deities died for it. But in the end, the divine weapon they created was actually unable to suppress the flames? Did their Che clan not have enough Tao arts to allow it to take form? He was unwilling to accept this. This divine weapon was the final hope of the Che clan. Once it failed, the Che clan would be destroyed, no longer existing. In the surroundings of the primordial chaos divine flames, countless experts of the Che clan were working hard, channeling all their energy into the primordial chaos divine flames, wanting to control it. They infused their Tao arts into it, attempting to form a connection with it and form a resonance with it. However, the primordial chaos divine flames spewed forth a terrifying amount of energy, transforming into a chaotic vortex that frenziedly devoured the Taos of everyone. However, there was no resonance at all. Careful, it is suffering a backlash. A heavenly deity called out. After that, an expert from the Che clan screamed in agony as he directly turned into ashes, becoming a part of the primordial chaos divine flames. Boom! The divine flames spat out a terrifying power. That terrifying vortex roared, and soon after, people continuously released miserable cries as they turned into ashes. They were all swept into the divine flame, turned into ashes, and then absorbed by that vortex. Patriarch. Many people turned their gazes to the Che clan leader. Che Ho's countenance turned ashen. The hard work of the generations, the blood and sweat of the entire clan, was all for the sake of creating such an uncontrollable monster? They were just one step away from the birth of the divine weapon, but they were unable to control their strength. Che Ho's expression contorted as he coldly spoke, "Subdue it. If it destroys this entire space, the Che clan will perish as well." The experts of the Che clan all had crazed looks on their faces. They understood that what their patriarch said was the truth. The power of this divine weapon was too powerful. If they couldn't suppress it, this entire space would be destroyed and the Che clan would vanish as well. They frenziedly unleashed their strength, trying to suppress it, activating the divine formation, but it was useless. That terrifying vortex devoured all energy, the divine flames roared, soaring up into the sky, igniting the entire space. The experts of the Che clan were all swept into it. A roar of rage rang out. This was the roar of a heavenly deity. However, it was useless. He was also swept into the vortex, becoming a part of the primordial chaos divine flames. The golden divine flames burned the sky. Within the primordial chaos vortex, a human-shaped face actually appeared. It was like a devil, causing the entire space to wail in agony. This was a calamity for the Che clan. When Che Ho saw this scene, a look of pain could be seen in his eyes. The Che clan was actually going to be destroyed because of the divine weapon they spent their entire lives to create. How ironic was this? He was unwilling to accept this. Countless divine formations covered the entire space. Che Ho held the scepter in his hand, wanting to refine the heavens. He took a step forward as his world refinement force gushed forth, locking onto the devil-like figure that was born from the primordial chaos divine flames. That figure inclined its head and stared at Che Ho. It was like it had a life of its own, causing Che Ho's heart to violently tremble. Since you guys created me, why is there a need to resist? Just infuse the life force and energy of all of you into me and I will naturally be able to fulfill your wish. You gave everything you had and created me. That devil-like figure spoke, actually speaking in human language. Cold, there were no traces of emotions in his voice. He wasn't a human, he was a weapon forged by the Che clan. We created you, but we didn't expect you to devour us instead. Che Ho coldly spoke. From their memories, I learned that your purpose in creating me was to create a divine weapon that can transcend everything. Since this is the case, you should know that your strength isn't enough to control me. If you can control me, I won't be able to achieve your goal. Don't you understand all of this? Are you stupid? The cold mechanical voice rang out again. Che Ho's expression turned unsightly, he was actually speechless. Indeed, they wanted to create a divine weapon that could transcend everything. This naturally exceeded the scope of their abilities. How could it be something they could control? Weren't they reaping the consequences of their own actions? I didn't expect that I would create a monster like you. Che Ho sighed. Was this the fate of their Che clan? Maybe. The cold voice rang out again. This entire space was being destroyed. Countless people from the Che clan were killed, becoming a part of the divine weapon. That devil-like figure actually let out a sigh. I was created by you guys and ultimately, I'm still influenced by you guys. This obsession of yours is so strong. Since this is the case, from now on, you are me and I am you. As the sound of his voice faded, that divine weapon directly broke through Che Ho's world refinement force and devoured his body. After that, the divine weapon slowly merged into his body. Che Ho's body trembled violently, he felt like he was being possessed by a devil. In this world, boundless energy frenziedly gushed into his body, wanting to digest all the energy in this world. The terrifying chaos divine flames broke through everything, tearing this space apart. In the ruins of the Che clan, there were still many people exploring it. In fact, there were even some conflicts as many people were in confrontation. However, at this moment, the entire world seemed to tremble. After that, the space was torn apart as a destructive might erupted forth. In the dimension, a beam of light that could tear everything apart appeared. No. Someone reacted, but it was already too late. That beam of light erupted forth, turning everything into ashes. In the ruins of the Che clan, the buildings that were rebuilt were all destroyed once more, turning into ruins. This beam of light not only devoured the ruins of the Che clan, it was also expanding outwards unceasingly, like it had the power to destroy the world, unceasingly destroying everything. The people from afar only saw the light of destruction. After that, that surge of energy gushed over, enveloping them as well. This terrifying beam of light shot up into the clouds, wanting to break apart the 9 heavens. The majestic city that the Che clan was in was destroyed. The entire city was destroyed, turning into ruins. That beam of light could be seen by countless people in the supreme ancient immortal realms. Their hearts trembled violently. What happened to the Che clan? At this moment, above the ruins, the Che clan leader, Che Ho, stood there. His aura had undergone a heaven-shaking transformation compared to the past. He was like a cold divine weapon, so cold that it caused people to feel fear. Right now, he was the divine weapon was him. The Che clan, the hard work of generations after generations, using the strength of the entire clan to forge a supreme divine weapon. But in the end, the backlash destroyed the entire Che clan. However, the obsession of the experts of the Che clan also influenced that divine weapon. Hence, all of this resulted in the current him. He, Che Ho, was no longer the Che Ho of the past. Boundless light radiated from him, transforming into a golden world that spread out on the ground. Very swiftly, numerous golden palaces rose up from the ruins, extending out in all directions, transforming into majestic castles. These castles were actually exactly the same as the Che clan of the past. After the Che clan was destroyed, he wanted to rebuild it. Right now, with him around, the Che clan would never perish again. He would represent the entire Che clan. His life alone was equivalent to the lives of countless people in the Che clan. Such a huge commotion erupted in the Che clan, an entire city was destroyed. This news soon circulated through the supreme ancient immortal realms, causing a huge commotion. Many people wanted to know what happened to the Che clan exactly. Very swiftly, there were people who said that they saw the Che clan leader, Che Ho. He has returned and he might have broken through to an even stronger realm, comparable to a god king. He returned to rebuild the Che clan and was preparing to fight for supremacy in the supreme ancient immortal realms. Could it be that the power of the three major powers was about to be broken? Did the fourth power appear? Such a huge change happened to the Che clan. Most probably, the other three major powers wouldn't be able to sit still anymore. In the Heaven Vault, Qin Wenyan was a little shocked when he received the news. The Che clan was actually rebuilt and there was only the Che clan leader alone. This was extremely strange. Chiyu took the initiative to request to head to the Che clan to probe the situation. If it was possible, he wanted to kill the Che clan leader, Che Ho. However, Qin Wenyan didn't agree. He felt that something was amiss. The Che clan leader actually dared to reappear and rebuilt the Che clan after destroying an entire city. It definitely wouldn't be so simple. Maybe it was like what the rumors said, he had broken through and reached another level. Chapter 2003. After Che Ho rebuilt the Che clan, he stayed there and didn't leave. The three hegemonic powers of the supreme ancient immortal realms didn't seem to be doing anything. Until one day, several heavenly deities arrived. They were none other than the prison god clan leader as well as the previous heavenly deities of the prison god clan. They submitted to Yu Changkong and came here to investigate. Looking at this golden city that was even more majestic than before, the prison god clan's patriarch said, "Brother Che, an old friend has come to visit. Why don't you come out and meet me?" In the golden city, a beam of light flashed, incomparably resplendent. After that, it transformed into a human figure. This person was none other than the Che clan leader, Che Ho. He stared at the expert who just arrived as he spoke. "I didn't expect that you would be the first to arrive." His voice was cold and emotionless as a weapon. Such a major incident happened in the Che clan, I naturally have to come and take a look. The prison god clan leader laughed. Back then when we joined forces to attack the Heaven Vault, we didn't expect it to end in failure. What's even more hateful is that the Heaven Vault ended our era. I'm sure Brother Che wouldn't forget this hatred, right? What do you want to say? Che Ho's eyes gleamed with coldness, causing people to involuntarily feel a chill in their hearts. Right now, I'm sure Brother Che should already know about the rumors regarding the supreme ancient immortal realms. Right now, I'm following Yu Changkong. He has the power of two god kings and no one in the supreme ancient immortal realms can compare to him. Brother Che, why don't you submit together with me and destroy the Heaven Vault, unifying the supreme ancient immortal realms? The prison god clan leader stated the purpose of his trip here. It was Yu Changkong who ordered him to come here and make Che Ho submit. Che Ho stared at him coldly, a mocking smile could be seen on his face. Back then when Qin Wenyan acted against the Qin clan and when he destroyed the Thunder clan, that unrivaled character you spoke of didn't appear at all. Also for the Western world, when we attacked the Heaven Vault, they have always been present behind the scenes, but they didn't even show their faces. Could it be that you still don't understand? In the past, you and I were just pawns. The Prison God clan leader felt a chill in his heart. Despite their strength, they could only be used as chess pieces. This was truly a lamentable matter. However, this chess game was a game between the strongest experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms. The winner of this game would obtain the entire world. Thus, he was still a chess piece. He was willing to be this chess piece, and he had no choice but to be this chess piece. Brother Che, there are many helplessness in one's life. You have no choice but to make a choice. The Prison God clan's patriarch seemed to be sighing, but at the same time, it seemed like he was threatening him. However, Che Ho only coldly laughed. You are right. There are many things one can't do in life. But from now onwards, I want myself to be the controller of my life. The Che clan was destroyed and I, Che Ho, also died once. The me now is no longer the me of the past. Since we once fought side by side, you can leave. I won't make things difficult for you. Brother Che, don't make things difficult for me. The Prison God clan leader spoke. Che Ho had a mocking expression on his face. Make things difficult? Indeed, he did not wish to deal with the Prison God clan's patriarch. After all, he was merely a chess piece being used by someone else. Otherwise, he would not have wasted his breath on him. Let's go back. Che Ho turned. The eyes of the Prison God clan leader flashed with coldness. He waved his hand and a moment later, the heavenly deities beside him unleashed their divine might. Incomparably powerful spatial blades slashed through space, slashing towards Che Ho. Che Ho's body stopped in the air. When the terrifying spatial blades slashed into his body, ear-piercing screeching sounds rang out. The attacks from the innate techniques felt like they had slammed into the toughest divine weapon in the world instead of flesh and blood. Che Ho slowly turned around. His eyes grew colder as he stared at the heavenly deities of the Prison God clan. Imichem? That heavenly deity who attacked frowned. He pointed his finger forward and in an instant, a terrifying golden spatial tempest manifested, wanting to tear everything apart. However, Che Ho still quietly stood there in the midst of the tempest. His golden robes fluttered in the wind. Let alone his physical body, even his robes weren't torn apart. This terrifying scene caused the expressions of the heavenly deities of the Prison God clan to change, including the Prison God clan leader. At the heavenly deity realm, one's fleshly body was truly terrifying. For those with powerful bodies, their bodies were comparable to divine weapons. But if one used heavenly Tao energy to attack, they would still be able to shake their bodies. But at this moment, when the powerful Tao energy blasted into Che Ho, he didn't even need to resist. He allowed the attacks to land on his body and he didn't even move. How terrifying was this? Spatial Tao art? Che Ho's lips curled up into a cold smile. He stretched out his hand and pointed it at the heavenly deity who attacked him. In an instant, a spatial passageway appeared between the two of them. This spatial passageway was directly enveloped by a terrifying vortex. After that, countless sharp divine weapons appeared in the vortex, transforming into a storm that wanted to tear this spatial passageway apart. The expression of that heavenly deity drastically changed. He blasted out with his palm, wanting to open up a path to escape from this spatial passageway. You still want to leave? Che Ho's voice was cold. With a clench of his fist, the spatial passageway began to twist and distort. In an instant, the entire spatial vortex was twisting and distorting. That heavenly deity from the Prison God clan who was in the midst of the twisting spatial passageway also began to twist and distort. Senior Che, please spare my life. The heavenly deity begged loudly. However, Che Ho didn't have any intentions to stop. He stood there with his arms stretched out and continued to spin slowly. The entire spatial passageway revolved according to the rhythm of his arm as the terrifying spatial vortex tore everything apart. That heavenly deity from the Prison God clan was buried within it. He basically didn't even have a chance to escape. The heavenly deities at the side watched with trepidation. In fact, even the prison god clan leader didn't act. He simply stood at the side and watched as his expression turned extremely unsightly. Yu Changkong ordered him to come here to probe the situation. If it was possible, he wanted to summon Che Ho over. But before he came, he was already prepared in his heart. Che Ho might be stronger than before, but he clearly didn't expect Che Ho to be so strong. Heavenly deities were like ants in his hands. Also, this was just a casual attack. If Che Ho went all out, how strong would he be exactly? Yu Changkong wants me to submit? At this moment, Che Ho's voice rang out. His gaze turned to the prison god clan leader as he coldly spoke. Tell him to come and find me himself. I also want to see how strong he, who has the abilities of 2 god kings, is. The prison god clan leader's heart trembled. The Che Ho at this moment was so confident that he wanted to test the strength of a god king. He was like a completely different person, completely different from the past. What happened to him exactly? Where were the others from the Che clan? Why did only Che Ho appear? I don't wish to kill you. If not, you won't be able to walk out of this space. Help me pass a message to Yu Changkong. If he doesn't come and find me personally, don't antagonize me. Also, the Western World and Heaven Vault, wait for me. I Che Ho am coming. Che Ho's cold voice was filled with immense confidence as well as hatred. He hated Qin Wenyan. If it wasn't for Qin Wenyan and the Heaven Vault, his Che clan wouldn't have to hide in a different dimension like a stray dog. He also hated the Western world, using them as chess pieces yet not revealing themselves. Right now, since he, Che Ho, gathered the obsession of the entire Che clan, as well as his divine weapon, he would definitely get revenge for this debt. Even though he was the only survivor of the Che clan now, he still wanted the name of the Che clan to resound through the supreme ancient immortal realms. The prison god clan leader didn't retort when he heard Che Ho's confident and arrogant words. Although they were both at the heavenly deity realm, the prison god clan leader now was most probably already left in the dust by Che Ho. Che Ho's cultivation base was so deep that it was impossible for him to compare to him. If heavenly deities were divided into cultivation realms, they could be divided into ordinary heavenly deities and peak stage heavenly deities like him. They belonged to the controllers of peak powers, and above that would be people like the old sect leader of the Qiankuan sect and Qin Ding. Qin Yuanfeng, who just returned, might be even higher, nearing the ancient god king realm. In that case, what level was Che Ho at now? Was he already at Qin Yuanfeng's level? Or was he even stronger? Was he comparable to an ancient god king? The prison god clan leader had no way to know because he had no idea how strong those at that level were. As for the controller of the Heaven Vault, Qin Wenyan, he could already suppress the Thunder Clan leader back then. At that time, his strength should be at the same level as Qin Ding and the old sect leader of the Qiankuan sect. As for now, he was most probably even stronger. Right now, the supreme ancient immortal realms had entered a crazy era. The prison god clan leader left. Che Ho's name once again resounded through the supreme ancient immortal realms. No one knew how he did it or what he experienced. But the people of the world already acknowledged his strength. Most probably, he could rely on his own strength to become the fourth hegemonic power in the supreme ancient immortal realms. The words Che Ho said to the prison god clan leader also circulated through the supreme ancient immortal realms. In the Heaven Vault, Qin Wenyan gave the order for the people of the divine sect to not go out easily. Che Ho might target their Heaven Vault. Although Qin Wenyan didn't know what Che Ho experienced, he guessed that the Che clan might already be finished. In the Heaven Vault, in the floating palace, Purgatory appeared beside Qin Wenyan and called out, "Big Brother Qin." Right now, Purgatory was also at the heavenly deity realm. Has everyone been summoned into the Heaven Vault? Qin Wenyan stared at Purgatory's beautiful face as he asked in a light voice. "Inchim." Purgatory nodded. "Big Brother Qin, can't we just go out and look for Che Ho? Given Qi Yu, Jun Mingchen and Little Rascal's current strength, it's enough to let them go." She clearly felt that Qin Wenyan was a little too cautious. Qin Wenyan smiled warmly at Purgatory. He stretched his hand out and patted her on the head. "The supreme ancient immortal realms is different from before. Because of my carelessness, Little Yi had no way to return. Now, I don't wish to lose any of you. Che-ho is alone, it's not easy for us to deal with him. However, our own targets are very big. Let's just wait for him in the heaven vault. Will he come? Purgatory asked. He will. Qin Wendian nodded. I guess that the Che clan might no longer exist. Che-ho will vent his anger on us. Given the words he said to the prison god clan back then, he will definitely come. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.